Chapter 269. Outside the mirror world, Rin and Osaka and Livia closed their eyes and crossed their arms as they waited quietly. Bizet, on the other hand, stood in the same spot without moving an inch. Meiyu, on the other hand, looked worriedly at the place where Wu Ming disappeared. As for Ilya, why hasn't Big Brother come out yet? Ilya kept walking and started complaining. Little Black, who was sitting on the steps at the entrance, looked at Ilya with disdain. That's a guy who has absorbed the Earth Vein's magic power for almost 2 months. Even if it's Big Brother, it'll be troublesome. Then, Little Black smiled and waved his hand. But, with Big Brother's strength, he'll definitely be able to deal with it. But, I'm very worried. I can't do anything about it, Ilya drooped her little head and said dejectedly. It's okay. It's normal for Ilya to be worried about Brother Wu Ming. You don't have to feel ashamed about it. Meiyu, who was looking at the spot where Wu Ming disappeared, walked up to Ilya and patted her little head. Ha! It seemed like Ilya had never been patted on the head by Meiyu before and was unable to get used to it. What's wrong? Ilya, did I go overboard? Meiyu had a worried look on her face. That's not it. It's just that I'm not used to it. Speaking of which, Meiyu seems to be very familiar with it. Ilya patted her head with a smile. This is because Brother Wu Ming often patted my head at home. I learned it unknowingly, Meiyu said embarrassedly as her cheeks reddened. Ha! Meiyu can enjoy Big Brother's patting every day. I'm so envious. Ilya heard and cried out enviously. Ilya, don't be like this. I'm so shy. Wu Ming pushed Ilya with a red face. And just as Ilya was about to say something, the space around her shattered. Gotcha! A red hurricane shot out from the broken space. Ha! What is this? Ilya asked in surprise. Then, a pitch-black face appeared in the shattered space. Ah! What? What is this? Ilya was clearly shocked. Ilya! Meiyu! Hurry back! Rin Anbin yelled anxiously. He's not someone you can deal with. Livia shouted. Bizet, on the other hand, was the first to rush over. Meiyu stared blankly at Black Gil, who was not far away. She fell into an overwhelming silence. Meiyu clearly knew that this enemy was Wu Ming's opponent in the mirror world. Since the enemy had broken through space and came out, then Wu Ming had already, Brother Wu Ming, ha! Bizet raised his fist, and Lune runes appeared on his fist. Bizet's strengthened fist heavily smashed into Black Gil's face. But, bang! Bizet was sent flying by the impact. He. Black Gil laughed with a twisted expression, and a dense black magic fog surrounded him. This is high-density magic fog. Bazet exclaimed in surprise. This scale is much greater than Saber's. Rin Anbin and Livia were also surprised. Ilya, let's go. Meiyu, who was awakened by Bizet's attack, instantly pulled Ilya and flew toward Rin Anbin and Livia. Hurry! Ilya, you take me. Meiyu, take Livia. Let's quickly retreat from here, Rin Anbin said. But, Big Brother, crack. Ah! Space shattered, and an exit that allowed Black Gil to pass through appeared. Black Gil laughed loudly. Whoosh, bang. A black arrow hit Black Gil, and the resulting explosion covered Black Gil's figure. Little Black. Ilya looked at Little Black. What are you doing? Hurry up and retreat. Little Black maintained his bow and arrow posture, and projected another bow and arrow. But, Big Brother, he's still. Ilya said worriedly. Big Brother is very powerful. He'll be fine. On the other hand, if Big Brother comes out of the mirror world and finds out that we're dead, then Big Brother will be very sad. Ilya, let's retreat. At this moment, Mayo's voice came from beside Ilya. Mayu. Why? Ilya didn't understand why Mayu also chose to retreat and give up on Wuming. Brother Wuming and I have an agreement. Brother Wuming said that he will definitely return safely from the mirror world. I believe in Brother Wuming. Seeing Mayo's firm gaze, Ilya was dazed for a moment. Then, she smiled and nodded heavily. Okay, I understand. Let's go, Ruby. Wow. Wow. You're all pumped up. Whoosh. Boom. Blackie shot another arrow at Hegel. Ah. Black Gil was enraged by Little Black's behavior. Hurry up and come over. I'll cover you. Little Black, who was already at the entrance, naturally didn't need to take the lead. Thus, she needed to cover the others. Then, Ilya carried Rin Enbin while Mayu carried Livia. The two of them flew toward the entrance of the passage. Bizet, who originally wanted to continue attacking, also began to retreat after Rin Enbin said, "The opponent has a noble artifact that can break through space. If you want to die, we won't stop you." It could only be said that Bizet was a little silly. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Little Black shot a few more arrows at Black Gil. Bang! Boom! However, Black Gil's magical mist shattered all of Little Black's arrows. Ah! Black Gil roared. Black ripples appeared around him, and countless noble artifacts appeared. Oh! Black Gil roared again, and countless noble artifacts shot toward Little Black. Little Black, run! Ilya and the others had already arrived at the center of the passage, so they hurriedly called for Little Black, who was still fighting Black Gil and covering them, to retreat. Little Black jumped lightly and grabbed the handrail of the stairs in the passage. Boom 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 boom. Countless noble artifacts that lost their target bombarded the wall and the ceiling began to shake. Boom, boom, not good, Big Brother hasn't come out yet. Ilya exclaimed when she saw the underground cave began to collapse. It's too late. The collapse of the cave can only delay the black servant's footsteps. We must quickly leave the passage and return to the surface. Otherwise, it's likely that we will be killed in this passage. Rin Enbin said calmly. Ilya and the others who were no longer emotional looked at each other, nodded, and began to fly toward the surface. At this moment, a sound like an airplane taking off came from the underground. Chapter 270. This is. Rin and Osaka and the others were shocked. What they saw was a pitch-black aircraft that looked like a bird. If Wuming was here, he would definitely recognize this. Vimana, even in Gilgamesh's treasure trove, was one of Gilgamesh's favorite treasures. Vimla's entire body was made of gold and emeralds. It could roam freely in the sky and the sea. Not only was the Vimosa equipped with various high-level relics, but it was also equipped with ancient nuclear warheads. Most importantly, the Vimosa was powered by the sun crystal that used mercury as fuel to generate solar energy. It could move at a high speed, regardless of the laws of physics. Regardless of whether it was moving vertically, descending vertically, moving left and right, or flying diagonally, the Vimosa could do all of them. Moreover, it could ensure that the passengers were safe and sound. However, because the servant was in the dark state, all of Gilgamesh's noble phantoms, including Vimana, had turned black. The black bird moved towards the ground through the passageway, and all the stairs in the passageway were destroyed. Not good. Everyone, run. Rin Enbin shouted in panic. Even if Rin and Osaka hadn't said anything, even if Big Sister Rin didn't say anything, we would still leave. Ilya hugged Rin Enbin and flew out of the tunnel, crashing to the ground. Mayu, Livia, Little Black, and Bizette also came out of the tunnel at the same time as Vimor flew out. Swish! Waymona flew up vertically like a giant bird. Soon after, the originally upright Vimona flattened out, and the pitch-black Gilgamesh sat steadily on the open-air seat of the Vimona. With a twisted laugh, he drove the Vimona away. Ah! Everyone who had escaped the calamity sat weakly on the ground. Ilya, Mayu, and Blackie looked at the collapsed tunnel with sorrow. They didn't say anything, only silence. Not good, that fellow is heading towards the city. Rin Tobisaka immediately recognized Vimona's movements and exclaimed in a panic. Let's hurry and stop him. Ilya stood up with a look of grief and indignation. Suddenly, a rather bored female voice sounded. I didn't expect the first-rate magician from the clock tower to be so useless, and you bunch of useless children. A silver-haired girl with golden eyes arrived in front of Rin Enbin and the others. Ms. Karen. Because Vimor seemed to be looking for something and didn't attack the city, Ilya and the others weren't in a hurry. The main point was that Karen, who seemed to be closely related to the Holy Church, had already used a spell to dispel and make people sleep. There were no longer any humans in the city. Rin and Osaka and Livia both blushed when they realized this. It could be said that the two of them had failed in their duties for not preparing for this in advance. After a short conversation with the girl named Karen, Ilya and the others left the collapsed passage and temporarily found a place to rest, preparing to stop the Dark Gilgamesh. After Karen's explanation, everyone learned a lot of things, including the secrets of Wuming and Mayu, as well as what the Dark Gilgamesh was looking for. The Holy Grail. Sitting on a chair outside the small wooden house, Ilya said in confusion. After all, she was born to be the little Holy Grail. What are you talking about? The little Holy Grail is obviously me. Ilya, you can just be a primary school student. Little Black sat beside Ilya and comforted her, although the way he comforted her was a little unusual. Ahahaha, you're right. Thank you, Little Black. Ilya looked at Little Black with a face full of smiles. Humph. Little Black turned his head away proudly. Speaking of which, Mayu is suffering the most right now, right? Ilya looked at Mayu, who was staring at the moon in a daze. Yes, we don't know if Big Brother is dead or alive. Compared to Mayu, who is Big Brother's younger sister, the two of us are doing better. Of course, it didn't mean that Ilya and Little Black weren't worried about Wuming. It was just that Mayu, who had lived with Wuming for almost all of her life, must be feeling very uncomfortable now that she didn't know if her brother was dead or alive. Don't worry. Wuming is the great sage of the Uruk. He's a legendary fantasy breed that even Kanzaki couldn't destroy. How could he be killed so easily? Livia's voice sounded. That's right. He's the teacher of the most ancient king. As the saying goes, the older you are, the wiser you are. If he dies so easily, it would be too degrading. Rin and Osaka's voice followed. Rin and Osaka and Livia were standing behind Ilya and Little Black without them noticing. Ah! You scared me. Really, Sister Rin and Sister Livia, why didn't you make any sound when you walked? Ilya was shocked. On the other hand, Little Black seemed to have noticed the two of them long ago and didn't show much panic. You're paying too much attention to Mayu. Look at Little Black and you're fine, Rin and Osaka complained. Is Mayu still worried about Wuming? Livia looked at Mayu with some heartache. Although Mayu had only stayed in her house temporarily, Livia had already treated Mayu as her younger sister. Big Brother, are you really all right? Ilya's voice became gloomy once again when this topic was brought up. You just need to believe in him, Rin and Osaka said confidently. Although it seemed like Rin and Osaka and Livia weren't worried about Wuming's safety, they actually believed in Wuming. They believed that he was a heroic spirit who had saved them. He was a high-level existence, but he was still their equal partner. At that moment, Mayu moved. Mayu turned around and jogged to the small wooden hut where everyone was gathered. That aircraft is making a big move. Mayu pointed at Vimona, who was moving at full speed toward Yuzong Mountain. It really is Yuzong Mountain. Let's go. Through the information provided by Karen and the judgment of Rin and Osaka and the others, everyone had more or less guessed that Dark Gilgamesh's target was the Great Holy Grail. Let's go. Yeah. Everyone replied in unison. Moments after everyone left, Karen and Bizet appeared. Aren't you going? Karen said rather uninterestedly. With him here, I'm not needed, Bizet said in confusion. Are you so sure that he's still alive? Not sure, but a fact. As if to prove Bizet's words, a ray of light suddenly appeared at the entrance of the collapsed tunnel. Seeing this ray of light, Karen and Bizet didn't say anything. After the ray of light disappeared, a meteor flew toward Yuzong Mountain. Damn it! I was careless and fell into his trap. Wuming said rather angrily. Just you wait. My cute disciple. Chapter 271. Near the foot of Yuanzong Mountain. Since Ilya and the others had already guessed the destination of the Dark Gilgamesh, they rested in a small wooden hut near Yuanzong Mountain. Therefore, they still neglected Vimona's full speed. As a result, Vimona arrived at Yuanzong Mountain ahead of time. Not far from Yuanzong Mountain. Ah! We should have set off for Yuanzong Mountain without stopping. Rin and Osaka complained. But if that's the case, Ilya and the others will also exhaust their stamina, Livia said. I have a question. Even if we catch up with that airship, how are we going to stop it? Ilya raised her small hand. Sure enough, we only planned to stop the Dark Servant first, but we didn't plan how to defeat him. Ilya's small face drooped. We can use Dream Summon, install. Mayu said. Dream Summon, install. Ilya and the others were puzzled. With the help of a class card, transform yourself into a servant and obtain the power of a heroic spirit. That's how I came to be, Blackie said. But it seems that we're too late now. Ilya pointed at Vimona's light that descended, not knowing what to do. Vimona's ancient nuclear warhead was fired. Boom! A louder roar than before and a bright light that seemed to illuminate the world made Ilya and the others unable to open their eyes and temporarily lose their hearing. It couldn't be helped. Ilya and the others were not far from Yuanzong Mountain. But fortunately, Ilya and the others didn't arrive at Yuanzong Mountain ahead of time. Otherwise, they would have died without a complete corpse. Ah, my ears hurt. With the ruby's healing effect, Ilya quickly recovered. Mio was no exception. Rin and Osaka and Livia had already fainted. As for Blackie, although he still felt uncomfortable, he was still a servant after all. Blackie's recovery was still very strong. By the way, Wu Ming had implanted the magic power generator he made for Xiao He in the form of an artificial magic circuit into Xiao He's body. In other words, Xiao He would no longer disappear due to exhaustion of magic power. What should we do? He must have gone to look for the Holy Grail. Ilya said anxiously. Ilya, don't worry. Mayo's voice suddenly choked up. Why are you crying, Mayu? Xiao He and Ilya asked in surprise. Mayu didn't answer Ilya and Little Black's question. Instead, she pointed at the meteor streaking across the sky. Ilya, who had ruby vision, and Xiao He, who had the body of a servant, saw the meteor clearly. It's Big Brother. Xiao He and Ilya's voices were filled with joy. Like Mayu, the two of them couldn't help but shed tears. Brother Wuming. That's great. Brother Wuming, you didn't lie to me. You really left the mirror world safely. Meiyu was crying tears of joy as she spoke intermittently. Look! Big Brother has become a giant. Boom! The ancient nuclear warhead was detonated in Yuanzhang Mountain. Wuming looked at Meiyu and others who were affected. Wuming instantly became furious. Fear the one with wings. Evil people and powerful people are all afraid of me who have wings. My wings will bring you a curse. Evil people can't hit me. I am the strongest, and I have all the victory in my hands. Be it human or demon, I am a person who can defeat all enemies, and I will defeat any enemy that stands in my way. Giants with unparalleled divine power, please give me your aid. With the release of Phoenix's soul, Wuming gained speed beyond anything. With the release of Giant, Wuming's magical power formed a huge giant. Come down. Wuming instantly came to the head of Dark Gilgamesh, who had released the ancient nuclear warhead and was ready to accept the Great Holy Grail. He punched him hard and hammered him to the ground. Wuming's punch directly shattered Vimona, then turned into a little black light and disappeared. Og! Dark Gilgamesh's voice came from the huge golden palm. Gurgle gurgle. A large amount of black mud appeared under the giant's golden palm. Whoosh! Wuming's golden palm began to smoke, and the black mud began to corrode the golden palm. Wuming controlled the giant to raise its palm and stepped back slightly. Sure enough, this black mud has a strong restraining effect on me. Wuming frowned and looked at the black mud that kept pouring out of Dark Gilgamesh's body. What kind of strong restraining effect was this? For example, if the black mud was left on the ground, it wouldn't have any effect on the flowers and trees on the ground. However, as long as it came into contact with silent noise, the black mud would explode like a mixture of raw materials, full of corrosiveness. When Wuming found the black mud in Dark Gilgamesh's body in the mirror world, the black mud took the opportunity to attach to Enkidu. With Wuming's attribute, the black mud naturally corroded Enkidu. As Enkidu was naturally injured. Wuming hurriedly lifted Enkidu's Enkidu and released Dark Gilgamesh. As a result, the black mud, as if found a breakthrough point, emerged from Dark Gilgamesh's heart and surrounded Wuming. Because the distance was too close, Wuming was instantly swallowed by the black mud. After that, Dark Gilgamesh had lost his opponent, so he took out the Gweili sword and broke through the mirror realm. As for Wuming, it could only be said that Wuming was indeed an existence that countered the black mud. Wuming released the aura of his origin dragon. Although the black mud swarmed toward him like maggots, the lack of replenishment allowed the black mud to be eliminated by the aura of his origin dragon. Although he still couldn't understand why the black mud, produced from the origin dragon, could restrain Wuming and why the aura of the origin dragon could restrain the black mud, Wuming knew that if he mixed his moves with the aura of the origin dragon, the black mud would be severely damaged. The next time my main body wakes up, I should be able to find out the truth, Wuming thought. Ah! The black mud began to change. Countless black mud began to gather together and slowly fuse with Dark Gilgamesh as the center. Do you think I'll let you have your way? For victory, come to me quickly. Immortal Sun, please grant me a shining steed. Spirited steed, bring me the light will that symbolizes your master. The sun descended on Winterwood City, which was originally dark. Chapter 272. Neigh. Accompanied by a loud neigh, a handsome white horse descended from the sky with the sun on its back. Boom! That night, the entire Yuanzhang mountain disappeared. House of Einstein Barons. Sela was sitting at the dining table, eating in small bites, while the TV was playing the news. Because a meteorite suddenly fell on Yuanzhang Mountain last night, it caused the natural trachea buried in Yuanzhang Mountain to explode. It's terrible, a meteorite suddenly fell to the ground, and is there natural gas in Yuanzhang Mountain? Sela thought. By the way, when did I fall asleep last night? I don't remember. Well, isn't this good? Sella must be so tired that she doesn't even know when she fell asleep. Alice Field sat next to Sella, eating and looking at Sella with a smile. Is that so? Yes, Sela was too tired, she accidentally fell asleep, she should go to bed early in the future, Lizette complained. You're the one who often falls asleep. Sela said helplessly. Ma, Alice Field smiled even more happily. By the way, Ma, do you really not need to call Ilya and the others? They had too much fun last night, let them have a good sleep, show all you residents. Mayu was sleeping in the room, while Wuming and Bizette were enjoying breakfast. Speaking of which, Master made quite a ruckus last night. Suddenly, Bizette opened his mouth. Last night, Wuming directly used double authority, and added a lot of his aura to summon the white horse, which directly melted Yuanzhang Mountain. Including the Great Holy Grail at the bottom of Yuanzhang Mountain, and the black mud that formed the giant. Wuming's move directly burned the black mud. After using double authority, Wuming came to Mayu and the others in time to protect them. Wuming still remembered how miserably Ilya, Mayu, and Little Black had cried back then. Wuming comforted them for a while before they stopped crying. According to Xiao He, this was the price Wuming had to pay for deceiving them. This made Wuming smile bitterly. Moreover, Wuming also promised to take the three of them to the amusement park as compensation. Not knowing whether to laugh or cry, Wuming shook his head and came back to his senses. I don't want to either, but if we continue to let him do as he pleases, who knows what will happen. Then, a golden ripple appeared behind Wuming, and a young figure bound by Enkidu fell out. Plop! Ouch, teacher, can't you be gentler? I'm your favorite disciple. A childish voice entered Wuming's ears. Wuming looked at the figure. He had a small body, short golden hair, red eyes, and a naked body. If it wasn't for Enkidu covering his 3 points, Wuming definitely wouldn't have let him out. You still have the nerve to say that. You're clearly the hero king, yet you were corroded by a mere black mud. You should be thankful that I didn't send you back to the martyr's palace. Wumlis gave the figure a ruthless slap. That's right, that was the young hero king, and it was not the female version that Wuming knew. The hero king in this world was the male version. You can't blame me for this, teacher. The black mud has your breath, so I treated it as an ally. Young Gil looked at Wuming with a smile. It seemed like Wuming used a lot of force, but Wuming didn't use much force. He only gently knocked on young Gil's head. Young Gil naturally knew that Wuming wasn't this world's Hyunryong. However, due to the suppression, when Wuming came to a parallel world, the identity of that world's Wuming would be attached to Wuming. If one had to say something, it would be that the suppression left a seat for Wuming in every parallel world. As long as he came, that seat would be taken by Wuming, and Wuming would leave his mark in history. Young Gil knew Wuming because of this. Although Wuming had never seen the male version of young Gil, the female version of Gilgamesh that Wuming knew was almost exactly the same as the male version of young Gil. Even their temperaments and personalities were the same. Seriously, put on your clothes and come over for dinner. Wuming rubbed his forehead helplessly. Then, he took out a set of Uruk clothes from his relic and threw it to young Gil. The moment before the clothes touched young Gil, the heavenlock, Enkidu, was completely retracted by Wuming. Young Gil didn't care about Bizette's presence. He quickly put on his clothes and sat next to Wuming. I didn't expect you to save Enkidu in another world, sensei. Young Gil said with a smile. Although Wuming's Enkidu had changed a lot, as a close friend, young Gil could still recognize Enkidu. When Enkidu bound young Gil, Enkidu and young Gil communicated. Even if they were close friends in a parallel world, that wouldn't change. Naturally, the two of them had a happy conversation. It's not considered saving. At that time, I escaped from the Uruk with my tail between my legs, Wuming said casually. Ha ha ha. That's because Sensei was restricted by the era. If you released your body, those gods would have surrendered to you a long time ago. Young Gil laughed as if he had heard a happy story. The gods all live in a higher dimension. In other words, they are already dead, Wuming said to young Gil as he drank a mouthful of porridge. Even if they died 10,000 times, it wouldn't be enough, Sensei, young Gil said with a smile. The reason young Gil said this was naturally because of Enkidu. Enkidu, who was saved by Wuming, stimulated young Gil and reminded him of the dead Enkidu of this world. Children shouldn't always talk about death, Wuming flicked young Gil's forehead. Sigh. Sensei is so nice to children. I thought Sensei had become a lolicon, young Gil patted his chest and sighed in relief. Your personality is still so bad. I really don't know what you learned from me, Wuming was a little speechless. I am the ancient king, the hero king, Gilgamesh. What I learned from Sensei is naturally the basic principles of being a king. Don't pour dirty water on me. I don't remember teaching you to have a bad personality, Wuming refuted young Gil's words with a little disdain. Sigh. Why are you like this, Sensei? After I went to the West, I also had a disciple there. She was much better than you, Wuming was talking about Artoria. Oh, someone who can be accepted as a disciple by Sensei, then I have to get to know her, young Gil's eyes were full of interesting charm. Bang! Wuming gave young Gil another flick. Well, this time it was a hard flick. Sensei, it hurts. Chapter 273. Wuming continued to eat as if nothing had happened. You've obviously become smaller, but you're still so uncute, just like the grown-up you. Well, there's nothing I can do about it. I also hate the grown-up me. Wouldn't it be better to be gentler? Although young Gil said so, Wuming knew that whether it was young Gil or the grown-up Gilgamesh, their personalities were the same. It was just that young Gil was the two-faced type. He looked good, but in fact, he was full of evil interests. Now that I've destroyed the tactics of the Great Holy Grail, do you still want to pursue the Great Holy Grail? Wuming asked without turning his head. Young Gil took a bite of Wuming's food and showed an expression of enjoyment. Since the small Holy Grail is teachers, then I can only give it up. Young Gil smiled. That's suspicious. Wuming stared at young Gil and said suspiciously. You appeared in the young version and not the grown-up version because someone used your other class card, right? Wuming suddenly said. Well, as expected of teacher. That's right. Now, most of my noble artifacts are on the other side. Young Gil smiled helplessly. Because Angelica used the Archer card of Gilgamesh, Gilgamesh's other card, which was the current young Gil, could be considered as an incomplete version. That's good. I'm preparing to attack the side with your card. Do you want to make up the numbers? Wuming's mouth curved into a smile. Hey, since teacher has personally appeared, do you still need me? Young Gil had a leisurely look on his face as he ate. Well, that's true. Since that's the case, you can stay here and look after the house. Wuming smiled. Also, don't bully Beauty. Wuming smiled and said word by word. Yes. Yes, teacher. Young Gil smiled awkwardly. After dinner, Wuming asked young Gil to wash the dishes. It had to be said that although the young Gil and the adult Gilgamesh had the same personality, the young Gil was able to control his temper more easily. When Wuming said to wash the dishes, he eagerly went to do it. As for Bizet, he was sent out by Wuming to buy ingredients. Wuming held the omelette rice that he had specially left for Mayu. Moreover, it was Wuming who had specially processed it with his magic to keep it warm. Then, Wuming knocked on Mayu's door. Mayu, are you awake? Wuming asked softly. However, there was no sound coming out from the room. Don't tell me she's still sleeping. Wuming didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Then, he opened Mayo's door. When he opened the door, as expected, Mayu was lying on her small bed. Because it was summer, Mayo's body was only covered with a thin layer of blanket. Wuming put the omelette rice on the table beside Mayo's bed, then gently sat on Mayo's bed. Mayu is really cute. Wuming laid in front of Mayu and carefully looked at Mayo's sleeping face. These few years, I feel like I'm raising a daughter. I really miss it. Fortunately, Mayo's nature was not very active. She was a quiet Mayu, lowly. Moreover, Mayu was very sensible. This made Wuming feel very relaxed and happy about raising a daughter. As if she sensed that there was someone around her, Mayu, who was sleeping soundly, moved and slowly opened her eyes. This is Brother Wuming. However, Mayu seemed to be in a daze. She looked at Wuming in a daze. It seems that yesterday was really tiring for you. This is the first time I've seen Mayu in such a daze. Wuming said with some heartache. After all, last night, Mayu was not only worried about Wuming's life, but also had to stop a powerful and terrifying enemy. Her body and mind were always tense. It was understandable that she slept like this. Brother Wuming. Mayu said in a daze. What's wrong, Mayu? Wuming said in an exceptionally gentle tone. He could not wake up a person who was in a daze instantly. This would cause some damage to her mental state. It was better to wake her up slowly and gently. Ilya said. Everything in the dream is not real. Then. I want to. Brother Wuming. Wuming looked at Mayu in confusion. What does Mayu want to do with me? Wuming moved closer to Mayu's ear and asked again. Wuming really did not hear the last sentence that Mayu said. Kiss kiss. As she said this, Mayu reached out and grabbed Wuming's neck. She instantly raised her head and kissed Wuming. Wuming widened his eyes. He really did not expect that Mayu, who usually looked especially quiet, would be so daring at this moment. Could it be that she was the same as usual, but became extreme in her sleep because of the suppression of her daily life? Also, what did Ilya tell Mayu? Fortunately, even if Mayu became extreme, she was still Mayu. Wuming only touched her slightly. After touching Wuming's lips lightly, Mayu let go of Wuming. At this moment, Mayu, who was in a daze from her sleep, was almost awake. Mayu came back to her senses. She looked at Brother Wuming's face that was incomparably real. She recalled what she had done just now. Mayu was stunned. That. I've prepared some food for you. Hurry up and eat, Wuming said gently. Wuming did not stop because of Mayu's shallow kiss just now. Wuming adjusted himself and instantly recovered from his shock. It's just a kiss from a sister to a brother. It's no big deal. Wuming began to self-hypnotize himself, however, Mayu was unable to let go of what had just happened. Woo! Woo woo! Wuming. Brother. Mayu's entire head was as red as a monkey's butt. She stared blankly at Wuming and stuttered. Wuming looked at Mayu, who was unable to look at his eyes due to her shyness. He did not know whether to laugh or cry as he smiled. Hurry up and eat. I can feed you today, Wuming touched Mayu's scalding hot little head and said gently. If one did not know the inside story, Mayu's scalding hot little head might be mistaken as having a fever. Look, I made your favorite omelette rice for you. Wuming said as he picked up the bowl of omelette rice on the table beside Mayu's bed. Mayu was indeed a genius girl. After seeing that Wuming did not panic from the previous kiss, she calmed down a little. Do you need me to feed you? This is a rare opportunity, Wuming asked again. Okay. Mayo's little head nodded. Wuming held the bowl of omelette rice in one hand and the spoon in the other hand. He gently scooped up a spoonful of omelette rice and sent it to Mayo's mouth. "Ah," Wuming said. "Ah." Mayo opened her little mouth and sucked on the spoon. "How is it?" Wuming asked with a smile. Mayo tasted it carefully. "It's delicious as always, Brother Wuming." Mayo still did not dare to look at Wuming. Her cheeks were slightly red as she said, "Then let's continue." "Okay." Chapter 274. Then, I'll go out first. Also, Mayo's sleeping posture is very cute. Wuming finished speaking and left Mayo's room with an empty tray. Mayo lowered her head deeply, her cheeks red. "Ruby, when did Brother Wuming come in?" Mayo said shyly. Sapphire flew out from Mayo's hair and spoke while floating. "Lord Wuming came in for about a few minutes. Because he sat beside you to observe Lord Mayo's sleeping posture, he woke Lord Mayo up. Then, Lord Mayo kissed." Mayo instantly grabbed Sapphire and covered her mouth. It was Sapphire's hexagram. Probably. Lord Mayo. It was obvious that Mayo didn't cover Sapphire's mouth. Sapphire asked curiously. "I don't think that Lord Mayo is a pervert who kisses her brother. After all, you aren't blood-related siblings. Theoretically, you can, don't say any more, Sapphire." Mayo blushed and shook Sapphire continuously. "I understand, Lord Mayo." Then, Mayo let go of Sapphire. Mayo thought about everything she did with Wuming and the words she said to Wuming. She shook her head in confusion. The reason why Mayo said that, since it's a dream, then everything isn't real, was because Mayo had almost been forcefully kissed by Ilya. After that incident, Ilya told Mayo that everything in the dream was fake. Children at this age like to dream, so it shouldn't be taken seriously. Ilya's goal was to let Mayo understand that her actions back then weren't because she liked Wuming. However, the extremely smart Mayo naturally knew that Ilya liked her brother. In the end, Mayo misunderstood that Ilya meant that they could do anything in the dream. In the end, the aforementioned morning kiss happened. Whoa. After thinking about it carefully, Mayo covered her face in shame and started sobbing. Wuming left Mayo's room and went to the kitchen. When Wuming came in, young Gil, who was washing the dishes, raised his hand to greet him. "Yo teacher, you're finally out." Young Gil finished washing the last dish and looked at Wuming. Wuming placed the plate beside young Gil's dish. "I'll leave this to you too. You're feeding me personally, aren't you?" "That's nice. Even teacher hasn't fed me before." Young Gil obediently started washing the dishes again. "That's because you're a man." Wuming waved his hand. Back then, he had fed the lowly Gil quite a lot. However, as they grew older, the lowly Gil became the cold and domineering big sister Gil. Therefore, Wuming's feeding privilege was revoked. "Sigh, and you said that you don't like lowly." "Teacher, seriously." Wuming narrowed his eyes. He could only say that he was indeed the male version of Gilgamesh. He was even more mischievous than the female version. "You'd better be prepared. I'll introduce you to my friends later. Remember, don't cause trouble for me and don't talk nonsense." "Yes, teacher," young Gil replied with a smile. "I hope so." Wuming left the Shuoyu residence. Before he left, Wuming handed a game to young Gil. "This is a modified version of Grand Strategy that I've specially modified with magic power. Clear it before I come back," Wuming said. After all, he had to find something for young Gil to do. Otherwise, with his mischievous taste, it was inevitable that he would cause some trouble. Wuming arrived at the house of Einstein Barons and parked the car at the door. Wuming entered Ilya's house. Wuming walked to the door. Just as Wuming was about to knock on the door opened by itself. "Aw, isn't that Mr. and Mrs. Xiao? Aw, isn't this Mr. Wuming? Are you here to look for Ilya and Blackie? They're still sleeping. It's so rare that the two of them are sleeping together. I've been looking at their sleeping faces for a long time. Mr. Wuming, you should go and take a look." Alice Phil was just about to go out and bumped into Wuming when she opened the door. "What a coincidence, madam. Are you going out?" Wuming said gracefully. "Yes. After all, the meteorite last night caused the natural gas pipeline to explode, and Yuanzhang Mountain was blown away. I have to check it out." Looking at the smiling Alice Phil, Wuming felt awkward. The news report about the meteorite causing the natural gas pipeline to explode and collapse was naturally made up by Wuming and the others to cover up the ordinary people. However, Wuming didn't know that the disappearance of Yuanzhang Mountain was actually explained as the meteorite causing the natural gas pipeline to collapse. Last night, Wuming handed this matter over to Rin Enbin, Luia, and the others. Then, he left with Ilya and the others. After all, the disappearance of Yuanzhang Mountain would definitely be discovered by the citizens. They had to deal with it as soon as possible. The result was, "They're really unreliable," Wuming complained in his heart. "About that, I'll take care of it in the near future." Wuming touched his head awkwardly. "Oh, law, that's great. Then, I'll take my leave first, Mr. Wuming." After saying that, Alice Phil left the Arinsbellen mansion. Wuming let out a long sigh of relief and then walked into the house. After greeting Sella, Wuming went directly to Ilya's room. According to Sella, Ilya and Little Black slept together last night, so Wuming only needed to go directly to Ilya's room. "Ilya, Little Black, are you awake?" Wuming knocked on the door and asked. After waiting for a few seconds, Wuming determined that the two were still asleep. "I'm coming in." With that, Wuming pushed open the door to Ilya's room. What entered Wuming's eyes was Little Black and Ilya's intertwined sleeping posture. Seriously, both of them. Why are their sleeping postures so improper? Wuming shook his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Wuming walked to the side of the bed, bent down, and shook Ilya and Little Black. "Ilya, Little Black, it's time to wake up. I have something to tell you. Wake up." Following Wuming's shaking and voice, Ilya and Little Black opened their eyes in a daze. Hey. It's Big Brother. Good morning kiss." Ilya smiled in a daze and reached out to hug Wuming. Again. Wuming, who had experienced it before, naturally did not fall for it this time. However, this was not the main point, but Ilya hugged Little Black and kissed Little Black's lips. Big Brother," Ilya said as she kissed. Wuming silently cast a soundproof barrier, just in case. At this moment, Ilya just woke up. Ilya was silent and looked at Little Black in a daze. Then, she looked at Wuming who was standing at the side. Wuming was also silent and did not say a word as he looked at the ceiling. "Ah!" Ilya's screams caused Wuming to helplessly cover his ears. As expected, I'm the genius who set up the soundproof barrier. Chapter 275. Alright then, I'll leave with Ilya and Little Black first. Wuming held Ilya and Little Black's hands and stood at the door to bid farewell to Sela. However, Little Black seemed to be holding back her laughter, while Ilya lowered her head with a blushing face. "Yes, take care," Sela smiled and waved goodbye. After walking out of the door, Little Black began to laugh. Hee, Ilya is so cute." Little Black looked at Ilya playfully. Woo. Ilya felt even more ashamed. Even though Ilya's scream didn't reach Sela's ears, it woke up Little Black who was still sleeping. Looking at Ilya's flushed and bewildered expression, looking at the astonished Wuming, feeling the moisture on her lips, and combining it with Ilya's scream, Little Black instantly understood everything. Come to think of it, I'm the victim. Why are you so shy when I haven't even said anything? Little Black looked at Ilya helplessly and held her forehead. But. Ho ho ho. Ilya lowered her head even more. Isn't it because you wanted to have a morning kiss with Big Brother and ended up kissing me instead? Or is Ilya regretting that she didn't kiss Big Brother? At that moment, Little Black became mischievous again. You're talking nonsense. I didn't. However, Ilya's blushing and stuttering rebuttal didn't seem to be valid. Alright, that's enough. Little Black, let Ilya off. With soundless pleading on Ilya's behalf, Blackie naturally nodded. By the way, why did Big Brother look for us today? Little Black asked the key question. At the same time, Ilya also looked at Wuming. Of course, it's about the 9th class card. After Wuming said that, the two of them became particularly serious. After all, the servant transformed from the 9th class card was rather terrifying. Show all you residents. A dark spatial door appeared out of thin air. Wuming walked out with Little Black and Ilya. We're here. Wuming let go of the hand that was held by Wuming out of fear. It had to be said that this teleportation gate spell was indeed a little scary, but it couldn't be helped. After all, it was a spell designed for darkness-type monsters. Ilya. Little Black. Mayo's voice came from the side. Mayu was sitting on the sofa in the living room, doing her summer homework. Mayu. Ilya shouted excitedly and then ran to Mayo's side. Little Hay also walked over. After seeing Mayu doing her summer homework, Little Hay didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I really don't know if I should say that Mayu is a natural or a careless person. She just went through such a horrible experience, but the next day, she started doing her summer homework as if nothing had happened. Wuming smiled helplessly. Mayo's personality was like that. Basically, she wouldn't be emotionally unstable because of anything. And the only time she had emotional lines was when Wuming's life was uncertain. But at that time, Mayu still insisted on doing what she was going to do next and didn't lose her fighting spirit completely because of emotional lines. Got to say, Mayu had an extremely calm mentality that even adults didn't have. But no matter what, Mayu was only a primary school student. After Wuming appeared from the mirror world, Mayu choked up and couldn't speak. This was clearly proven. Because if I don't do a little every day, I will have to work hard to make up for it in the future, Mayu answered in a serious manner. As expected of Mayu. That's Mayo's style of answering. Ilya and Little Black smiled awkwardly. It's about time, Wuming suddenly said. ? Ilya and the others looked at Wuming in confusion. Master, I've brought Rin and Osaka and Livia Serena Edelfelt here. At that moment, Bazette's voice sounded from outside the door. Shortly after, Bazette pushed the door open and entered, followed by Livia's black twin ponytails and blonde wavy hair. When Wuming got Bazette to buy ingredients, he also got him to bring Rin and Osaka and Livia over. In the end, the natural Bazette tied up Rin and Osaka and Livia and brought them over. Everyone arrived at a small conference room and sat on 2 rows of sofas in the conference room. Seriously, we would have come back if you just let us know. Is there a need to do this? Rin and Osaka stroked her twin ponytails in displeasure. That's right. You're really not ladylike at all and you don't respect ladylike women at all. You actually tied me up with Rin and Osaka. Livia stroked her blonde wavy hair. What do you mean by that? Do you think I still like being tied up with you? Rin and Osaka glared at Livia fiercely. Aw, what a pitiful attitude, Rin and Osaka. Livia mocked back. Ahem, Wuming, who was sitting at the head of the table, coughed twice and then glared at Bizette. Bizette's body immediately tensed up like a mouse that saw a cat. She knew that she did something wrong again, probably. Wu Ming, who was sitting at the head of the table, stopped glaring at Bizette and began to speak. First, let's talk about the 9th grade card. Everyone had a serious look on their faces. After all, the blackened servant yesterday was an existence that fooled Wu Ming, and in the end, Wu Ming had to use Sun to eliminate the blackened servant. The blackened servant yesterday is my disciple, Hero King Gilgamesh. Brother Wu Ming's disciple. Ilya, Xiao He, and Mei Yu were surprised. Sure enough. Rin and Osaka and Livia said secretly. Yesterday, the blackened Gilgamesh used countless noble phantoms to bombard Rin and Osaka and the others. Not only did he have a noble phantasm that could cut through space, but he also had an airship that could fly and release ancient nuclear bombs. After Rin and Osaka and Livia's investigation, they almost locked onto the ancient king, Hero King Gilgamesh. The airship yesterday was Vimona, am I right? Bizette said. Wu Ming nodded. But, that Hero King was defeated by Big Brother, right? Ilya meant that there was no need to talk about the defeated enemy. No, actually, when I defeated him, I also destroyed the Great Holy Grail technique in Yuzhang Mountain. As a result, the two of them had some connection. With that said, Wu Ming snapped his fingers, and a golden ripple appeared beside him. Clatter! Young Gilgamesh fell to the ground with the sound of chains. Hello everyone, I'm Master's favorite disciple, Gilgamesh. Nice to meet you, Chapter 276. Young Gil's body was wrapped in chains, but even so, he still greeted everyone. This child is Big Brother's disciple, the oldest king. Ilya said in disbelief. It's the real deal. I'm the oldest king, the Hero King, Gilgamesh. Looking at young Gil's sweet smile, Ilya was dumbfounded. But why is the legendary oldest king a child? Blackie voiced out the doubts in Ilya's heart. This is probably how the Hero King, Gilgamesh, looked like when he was young. As expected of a first-rate magician from the clock tower, Rin Enbin instantly thought of this possibility. Rin is right. Because most of Gil's power is in another card, the current Hero King, Gilgamesh, is also a weakened version of a child, Wu Ming explained. Wait. Another card. Livia repeated what she heard from Wu Ming. Yes, that's right. This is also the topic of this meeting that I called everyone here. Then, Wu Ming told everyone that he and Mei Yu came from another world, which was the parallel world. Because of the House of Einstein Barons, of the other world, Ainsworth's persecution of Mei Yu, Wu Ming fought with him and was tricked in the end. Shiro Omiya of the other world used the Holy Grail to make a wish and sent Mei Yu to this world. He also came to this world because he was pulled by the Holy Grail when he disappeared. He told everyone a series of things. Big Brother from the other world. Ilya said slowly. The House of Einstein Barons, of the parallel world, Ainsworth. Blackie said with a serious expression. The Holy Grail War of the Cards. I see, Bizette said thoughtfully. No wonder you know so much about the class cards. Rin Enbin looked at Wu Ming and Mei Yu with a look of relief. So why are you telling us all this? Livia asked. Isn't this what you've always wanted to know? Wu Ming smiled. I'm sorry, Ilya, Little Black. Mei Yu looked at Ilya and Little Black apologetically. How could that be, Mei Yu? After all, everyone has things that they don't want to talk about. It's not your fault. Ilya held Mei Yu's hand and smiled at Mei Yu. It wasn't easy for Ilya to say something reliable, but she's right. Mei Yu, if you want to blame someone, blame Big Brother. It's Big Brother's fault for hiding it from us, Little Black said mischievously. No. You can't blame Brother Wuming. I'm also responsible for everything here. Meiyu shook her head in a slight panic. This made Wuming laugh. You guys. I'll buy ice cream for you guys later as an apology. How about that? Really? I want strawberry-flavored ice cream, and it's a double-layer ice cream. Ilya looked excited. Seriously, a mere Ilya was bought over by ice cream. Little Black looked at Ilya with disdain. He. Ilya didn't refute. She scratched her head awkwardly. If it's me, I want 4 layers of double-flavored ice cream, Little Black said proudly. Ah. Little Black, you're still talking about me. Aren't you also bought over? Ilya's little face puffed up like a little bun as she stared at Little Black. I think, Wuming, you must have other things, Livia said after thinking for a while. Wuming smiled slightly. You're right. I'm preparing to attack Ainsworth, and I want you guys to help me take care of Meiyu. What? When Wuming said this, everyone shouted in surprise. Among them, Meiyu had the most intense reaction. Why? I want to go back with Brother Wuming. Meiyu said with a slightly anxious tone. That's not a good choice, Wuming. Rin Anbin crossed his legs. You said it yourself. Because you were defeated by Ainsworth, with the help of the parallel worlds. Amiya, Kuan, Meiyu was sent to this world. If you go back, wouldn't you be walking right into a trap? Ilya and Little Black nodded frantically. Unfortunately, even if I don't go back, Ainsworth has the ability to find this place. Since that's the case, I might as well act first and gain the upper hand, Wuming explained. Then, Livia arrogantly pointed at herself. If that's the case, you'll need someone else's help. Coincidentally, Livia Sarinta Eiderfelt, happen to be a good ally. I'm quite free these days. Also, don't forget, you promised to help me analyze class cards. If you don't know how to do it, who's going to help me analyze class cards? Rin Anbin followed Livia's words and said. When Livia heard this, her expression changed. Damn you, Rin Anbin, you actually secretly asked Wuming to help analyze class cards behind my back. Livia stared at Rin Anbin, and Rin Anbin didn't back down and stared back at Livia. I'm hiding it from you, what can you do about it? Their eyes were filled with the flames of battle. Since they can find us, I think it's better to act first and gain the upper hand according to Big Brother's words. Although I'm not that strong, I'll still help with Meiyu and Big Brother's matter. Ilya clenched her fists and encouraged herself. My heart is the Archer class card. Since I'm already involved in this matter, of course I have to help Big Brother solve this matter. Little Black then jumped into Wuming's arms and hugged Wuming's neck affectionately. Moreover, the magic power essence that Big Brother gave me is now flowing well in my body. I have to repay you well, you. What are you doing? Little Black, get down from me. Ilya's face instantly turned red, and she quickly ran over to pull Little Black away from Wuming's arms. This matter has nothing to do with me, but the other party has all the secrets of the class cards. As the designated executor of the seal, I have to take it back. Bazit had a serious expression. However, Wuming looked at Bazit with a teasing expression. Cough after all, I still owe you a debt, master. Bazit's face turned red. It had to be said that although Bazet was a bit silly, as a magician, he still had a bit of humanity. Of course, it was only a bit. Everyone. Meiyu looked at everyone in the room with tears in her eyes. As if in tacit agreement, Rin and Osaka and Livia who were glaring at each other, Ilya and Blackie who were tugging at each other, and Bazit who had been sitting there without moving, all looked at Wuming in unison. Wuming closed his eyes and said helplessly. It's really troublesome. I understand, then I'll leave it to everyone. Oh. Aw, it's good to be united, don't you think so, little blue? Ruby floated on the side and said while watching the scene. Sister finally said something reliable, I'll reluctantly accept you today. Sapphire said calmly. Aw. Little blue, why are you like this? I'm so sad. Please don't do this again, sister. Finally, young Gil, who had been tied up by Enkidu, looked at Wuming with a smile. Sensei, it seems that you're becoming more and more human. Chapter 277. Then, everyone freeloaded a meal at Wuming's house. A few days later, Ilya and Blackie used the excuse of going camping with Wuming to apply for leave from home and left the Arinsbellen mansion. When everyone was ready at the Shoasuki mansion, Wuming wasn't in a hurry to activate the parallel world technique. As for whether Wuming could travel through parallel worlds, it was naturally a piece of cake for Wuming, who could travel through parallel worlds on his own. Because he needed to locate the parallel world where Ainsworth was, Wuming spent a few days. This was also why Ilya and the others only applied for leave a few days later. Seriously, what do you mean by eating the last dinner in this world? You make it sound like we're dead for sure. Rin and Osaka ate the dinner Wuming prepared and complained at the table. Well, after all, I haven't finished locating that parallel world. Bringing the entire Shoasuki mansion through parallel worlds isn't an ordinary job, Wuming said. Well, big sister Rin, please understand big brother. Ilya smiled, but her smile was a little puzzled. By the way, why did big brother bring his mansion through with him? Isn't that too strange? Blackie asked the question that Ilya didn't ask. Bizet, Olivia, and Rin and Osaka also looked at Wuming, indicating that they also wanted to know. Then, Wuming smiled but didn't say anything. It's like this. The Shoasuki mansion that Brother Wuming built is actually Brother Wuming's magic workshop, Meiyu said. Although Wuming didn't tell Meiyu about the workshop's control room Meiyu vaguely knew about it, but Meiyu didn't ask. As for the other places in the Shoyu residence, when Wuming had found Meiyu and brought her to the Shoyu residence, Wuming had told Meiyu everything. Meiyu could be said to be Wuming's most beloved person. It was true that Wuming had been to many places and met many people, but Wuming really regarded Meiyu as his closest relative. The other was an origin dragon that had no parents and only had the Great Origin as its ultimate goal. One was a pure holy grail from birth. Meiyu was born with a mechanism that allowed her to fulfill her wishes based on the influence of her surroundings. Before meeting Wuming, she had only met her mother. Before meeting Wuming, she had not received any general education. It was only after meeting Wuming that she began to grow as a person. Julian once said that rather than saying that Meiyu had the nature of the Holy Grail, it was better to say that the Holy Grail had awakened a human personality. Meiyu was such an existence. It could be said that before the age of 5, which was before all of Meiyu's relatives died, Meiyu could barely remember anything. At that time, Meiyu only remembered her mother. Now, due to the nature of the Holy Grail, Meiyu had forgotten about her mother. After all, for the Meiyu at that time, her mother was the only person she depended on. In addition, at the beginning, Shiro Amiya used Wuming and Meiyu as tools because of Amiya Kiritsugu's will. Therefore, Meiyu's closest relative could only be Wuming. Fortunately, Shiro Amiya was later enlightened by Wuming's words and began to treat Wuming and Meiyu as a real brother and sister. Meiyu also didn't ignore Shiro Amiya and had already regarded Shiro Amiya as a brother. However, compared to Wuming, this brother's weight was still not enough. Magic Workshop. Having said that, Wuming's profession is caster, magician, right? It seems that this makes sense. Rin Hosoka was surprised at first, then said after thinking about it. By the way, what does Magic Workshop mean? Ilya raised her small hand and smiled a little shyly. Really, Ilya, you can be regarded as a person who has stepped into the world of magicians. How can you not know the essential knowledge of magicians? Xiao He touched his forehead helplessly, then began to explain. The so-called magic workshop refers to the position set up by the magicians themselves. In their magic workshop, the magician's magic will be greatly enhanced. Not only can they monitor the enemies in the magic workshop in real time, but they can also set up traps, weapons, and the like against the enemy in the magic workshop. In short, it is a very powerful magic fortress. Don't fight with magicians in their magic workshop. This is common sense in the world of magicians. Livia said. Do you still remember the caster, magician, class card that we recovered? At that time, the mirror world had already been set up by caster as the magic workshop. At that time, the magic circle and the super powerful magic cannon attack that we saw at that time were the effects of the magic workshop. Rin and Ben added. In this way, Ilya completely understood. So, Big Brother can also set up countless magic circles in his own house. Ilya said with some excitement. After all, the power of countless magic cannons was really not small, and the scene was very spectacular and gorgeous. Ilya naturally felt that it was very powerful. Well. In fact, I can do it now. Wuming touched his chin, then snapped his fingers. In an instant, countless magic circles of various sizes appeared in various places of Shuosuke's house. The courtyard, the house, the sky, and the ground were full of magic circles everywhere. Even the bowl and chopsticks used by Ilya had several small magic circles. Ilya was instantly shocked. This is... Each magic circle is full of magic power beyond imagination. There should be a limit to cheating, Bazette, Livia, and Rin Hosoka said with some disbelief. Then, Wuming snapped his fingers again, and all the magic circles disappeared in an instant. These are very simple magic circles that can release magic cannons. What I don't lack the least is magic power. These are no big deal. Wuming said modestly. Rin Hosoka and the others' mouths twitched. Sure enough, heroic spirits and humans could not be compared. Even a heroic spirit's clone servant was not something that humans could catch up with, not to mention that the servant in front of them was a top-level fantasy breed that had always been alive. These are all child's play. As long as it's an enemy, I can instantly make it disappear the moment it enters Shuosuke's house. Wuming said with a smile. Extreme cold, extreme flame, concentrated venom, force gravity suppression, atomic split, concept rewriting. As long as it's in my shrine, I'm a true god. Wuming said without hesitation. Well, although it was true, it had to be inside Wuming's magic workshop. Therefore, if the enemy attacked from the outside and did not enter Wuming's magic workshop, then Wuming could not be a god for people who were not in the magic workshop. By the way, Big Brother, I have something to ask you. Little Black suddenly said. What is it, Little Black? Wuming nodded, indicating that Little Black could ask. Since Shuosuke's house is Big Brother's magic workshop, then will Big Brother do something to us when we are asleep? Ah! Everyone was a little dumbfounded. Also, will Big Brother spy on us through the surveillance camera? Xiao He is really curious. Although everyone knew that Wuming would not do this, they felt more and more uneasy when Little Black said this. I say you. Wuming was a little helpless. Just as he opened his mouth to say a few words, young Gil on the side interrupted Wuming's speech. You guys are too shallow. Teacher's words do not need to be sneaky. It must be open and aboveboard. You guys can rest assured. Everyone hugged their bodies tightly. I feel like you're making me sound worse. How can that be, teacher? I'm just telling the truth. It hurts. This hand chop is a lesson. Next time use my body. Please show mercy, teacher. Just like this, with an uneasy mentality, everyone began the last sleep of this world. Chapter 278. In the middle of the night, when almost everyone was asleep, Wuming appeared on the roof of the Shuoyu residence and looked at the Yuanzhang mountain. That's right, he was looking at the Yuanzhang mountain that had been destroyed but had reappeared. Space displacement, huh? Wuming frowned and explained the reason for the reappearance of the Yuanzhang mountain. "Oh, teacher, it seems like the other party has already found their way here." Accompanied by golden particles, young Gil landed beside Wuming and looked at the Yuanzhang mountain together. The Magic Association and the Holy Church are going to be busy again. Wuming shook his head expressionlessly. Previously, the reason why Wuming didn't cover up the disappearance of the Yuanzhang mountain and directly attributed it to the meteorite and natural gas was because the sun that Wuming summoned that night had attracted the attention of the residents in the surrounding cities. The Magic Association and the Holy Church used their magic to hint at the meteorite and natural gas explosion and successfully imprinted it into the hearts of the people. And now, the Yuanzhang mountain that had been covered up and disappeared had reappeared. Without thinking, Wuming knew that it would be extremely troublesome to deal with the aftermath. "Since the other party is already here, shouldn't we go and meet them, teacher?" Young Gil said with a relaxed expression. "Actually, that's what I was thinking, but..." Wuming smiled mysteriously. Young Gil shivered. His mischievous personality wasn't affected by his teacher at all. The next morning, Ilya woke up in her own bedroom. Although Ilya had stayed in Wuming's house for a short period of time, it was still easy for her to sleep soundly. I don't recognize the ceiling," Ilya said in a daze. "Right, this is Big Brother and Mayo's house." No, you can't sleep in someone else's house." Although she said that, Ilya didn't panic. After all, she had stayed here for quite some time and this could be considered her second home. Ilya hurriedly sat up and patted her face. Then, she began to wash up in the bathroom in the bedroom. It had to be said that one could really do anything with money. Not only did Wuming and Mayo's rooms have their own private bathroom, but even the rest of the guest rooms had their own private bathroom. And these independent bathrooms were luxurious, with toilets, washstands, baths, and almost everything. And because it was Wuming's magic workshop, it had an automatic cleaning function, which was why Wuming didn't hire others to clean such a large house. Although Mayu would clean it sometimes, because it was too clean, Mayu didn't have anything to clean for Mayu. I can only say that as expected of Big Brother. Mayu seems to be living the life of a young lady. Ilya thought. After walking out of the bedroom, Ilya arrived at the dining room. Ilya had been living in Wuming's house for nearly every morning. Either she would get up because she couldn't stay in bed in someone else's house, or she would be gently awakened by Wuming. But, after washing up, the first thing she would do was to go to the dining room of the Shuoyu residence. After all, it's Big Brother's food. I have to treat this food well. Ilya gulped, somewhat impatient. The dining room of the Shuoyu residence wasn't large, but it was still much larger than the dining rooms of ordinary people. It was more than enough to accommodate Rin Enbin, Ilya, and the others. After arriving at the dining room, Ilya discovered that Rin Enbin, Luvia, Miyu, Blackie, Bazette, and Gil were already sitting at the table and enjoying the food. Am I the last one? Ilya scratched her head in embarrassment. Too slow, Ilya. If you came any later, I would have eaten your share, Blackie said mischievously. How can that be? Ilya hurriedly sat down, expressing her ownership of the breakfast. That's why, Ilya-chan, you can only eat good food if you sleep early and wake up early. Ruby darted out from Ilya's hair, wriggled her body, and floated beside Ilya to tease her. I'm also waking up early now, but everyone woke up earlier than me. Speaking of which, why is everyone able to wake up so early? Ilya sat down on her seat, and began to enjoy the breakfast that her big brother had prepared for her. Seriously, even though you're Ilya, you still have the habit of lazing in bed. I think you were able to wake up because of the temptation of Big Brother's breakfast. Blackie's words seemed to have exposed Ilya's secret, and Ilya's face instantly flushed red. How? How is that possible? Ah ha ha ha. In response, Ilya could only laugh dryly. If it's me, I only need to sleep for 4 hours, Bizet suddenly said seriously. Ilya laughed dryly. If she remembered correctly, this big sister in front of her seemed to be called a monster by Big Sister Ling and Big Sister Livia. As for Lord Mayu, it's because of a good habit that she's been cultivating. Sapphire floated beside Mayu and explained. Because Brother Wuming has been working very hard, so I wanted to wake up early to help Brother Wuming do something. Mayu said with a slightly red face. As for Ling and Livia, I think they were the ones who were purely tempted by Wuming's delicious food. Ruby floated above Ling and Livia's heads, and said playfully while wriggling her body. How is that possible, Ruby? Ilya was just about to refute when she saw Ling and Livia's faces instantly turn red. Could it really be? Ilya was embarrassed. I think you're tired of living, Ruby. Rin Enbin instantly grabbed Ruby. How dare you casually judge a lady, you better be mentally prepared, Ruby. Wait. Ilya. Save me. Then, Ruby was pulled into a room by 2 people. Ahahaha. Ilya was helpless. What about Gil, Kuan? In order to hide her embarrassment, Ilya looked at this child who looked younger than her but was a king. Isn't this normal? I'm a king, which king would laze around in bed? Young Gil held a glass of red wine elegantly and took a sip. Is that so? Ilya smiled. Speaking of which, why is Big Brother gone? Is he still in the kitchen? Ilya just realized that Wuming was not among the people eating here. If it's teacher, he's outside now. Young Gil seemed to have thought of something and smiled slightly. If it's possible, I suggest that all of you go out and take a look. It must be very interesting. Young Gil said mysteriously. Coincidentally, Rin Enbin and Livia had also returned at this time, along with Ruby who seemed to have been played with. Ruby. Ilya looked at Ruby with some heartache. Ilya, you must avenge me. Ruby looked like she could not take it anymore and her voice began to tremble. Please let me deal with my sister, Ilya, Sama. As Sapphire spoke, a string appeared from her body and wrapped around Ruby, dragging her away. Wait, little blue. When she was being pushed away by Sapphire, Ruby regained her energetic voice. As expected, she's pretending again. Ilya was helpless. By the way, what did Wuming do again? Rin Enbin asked curiously after hearing young Gil's words. You'll know when you go out. Young Gil took another sip of red wine elegantly. Ilya and the others looked at each other, then stood up one after another and walked outside. Big Brother, listen to Gil, Kuan, you're. Ilya said as she pushed the door open, but the moment she opened the door, Ilya's voice stopped abruptly. As if she was stunned by the scene before her, Ilya was stunned. Of course, the others were the same. Wuming, who was standing in the snow, turned his head and smiled. What, have you all finished eating? Chapter 279. Everyone was stunned. Of course, it wasn't because Wuming had suddenly become so handsome. Instead, it was because of their surroundings. The mansion was still the familiar mansion. The sky was still the familiar sky. The city outside was still the same city. However, Big Brother, what's going on? Why is it snowing all of a sudden? Ilya was a little excited. That's right. The mansion was still the familiar mansion. The sky was still the familiar sky. The city outside was still the same city. Everything that Ilya and the others saw was covered in a layer of snow. In short, it was snowing. Is this what Gilgamesh meant when he said it was very interesting? Although I don't know how you made it snow in the summer, why did you suddenly do it? Rin Tasaka walked to the snowy ground in the courtyard. He asked Wuming while enjoying the coldness brought about by the snowflakes. Everyone walked to the courtyard as well. Through the temperature and material structure, this is indeed snow. Bazit analyzed seriously. Amazing. Big brother, it's really snow. Ilya started running in the courtyard. She was enjoying the fun that could only be enjoyed in winter. Mayu also reached out her hand in nostalgia. She felt the coolness brought about by the snowflakes. I didn't do anything to the weather. Wuming waved his hand innocently. Isn't it Big Brother who did it? Little Black asked in confusion. Everyone looked at Wuming in confusion. We've already arrived in a parallel world. Everyone in the house exclaimed. Only Mayu, who had more or less guessed it, and young Gil, who already knew about it, didn't make a fuss. Hey. Don't be so surprised. Aren't you all prepared to head to a parallel world? Wuming covered his ears helplessly. But, after sleeping for a night, we arrived in a parallel world. It's not shocking at all. Little Black had a look of regret. Yeah, shouldn't transmigrating to a parallel world be very spectacular? Transmigrating to a parallel world just like that is quite boring, Ilya agreed. Traveling through parallel worlds is an ability comparable to magic. I originally wanted to observe it carefully, but it's a pity. Bazit coughed and said with a reddened face. More importantly, we're going to travel to a parallel world. A parallel world. What do you think this is? Do you think we'll arrive at our destination after taking a nap on the train? Rin and Osaka said frantically. You're just a mere monkey. To put it bluntly, you're just throwing a tantrum because you didn't see it, Livia said gracefully. It was as if she wasn't among the group of people who had screamed just now. You upstart. Aren't you the same? At least I'll say it out loud. You, on the other hand, only know how to keep it in your heart and pretend to be elegant. How disgusting! Rin and Osaka also elegantly played with her twin ponytails and began mocking Livia. A mere Japanese monkey pretending to be elegant is even more disgusting. You blonde upstart. Japanese monkeys. Immediately, the two of them began to wrestle with each other like children. Ruby sighed helplessly as she watched the two of them wrestle. As expected, giving up on the two of them was the right choice. My Ilya is still the best. She's bullied by me every day and doesn't throw a tantrum immediately, Ruby said with a playful tone as if she was taking pleasure in others' misfortune. Mayu-sama is also better than Livia-sama in this aspect. Also, sister, Ilya-sama isn't a toy. Sapphire said and tapped Ruby. That's right. Don't tease me every day, Ruby. Ilya also protested. Really, you guys are really noisy. Wuming said helplessly. Then, Wuming held Mayu's hand and walked to the side. Brother Wuming. Mayu didn't understand why Wuming was holding her hand. Wuming didn't answer Mayu's question and only looked at Mayu dotingly. This made Mayu blush. Actually, the enemy already appeared last night. When Wuming said this, whether it was Rin Enbin and Livia who were fooling around or Mayu who was being held by Wuming, everyone tensed up. Of course, except for the young Gil. The Yuzong mountain that disappeared last night has reappeared. Wasn't it done by the Magic Association or the Holy Church? Ilya asked. The Magic Association wouldn't use a method to repair the Yuzong mountain in one night. It's not worth it. As for the Holy Church, they're the same as the Magic Association. Rin Anbin shook his head. That's right. Also, if my senses aren't wrong, the Yuzong Mountain's reappearance is due to displacement magic. Wu Ming held Mayo's hand and said to everyone. Are you talking about the Ainsworth family? Livia asked solemnly. Most likely. Wu Ming nodded. Feeling the tension from Mayo's body, Wu Ming gently held the back of Mayo's hand. Don't worry, Mayu. This time, I'll take care of Ainsworth once and for all. Wu Ming said with incomparable confidence. Okay, I believe in Brother Wu Ming. Mayu hugged Wu Ming's arm, her face filled with warmth. Ahem, Little Black coughed. Ah. Mayu hurriedly let go of Wu Ming's arm. It's time for a meeting. Even Mayu can't be lovey-dovey in front of us. Little Black said sternly. Yes. Yes. Mayu nodded with a red face. Wu Ming laughed. You little girl, you're obviously jealous. However, as if he had gotten the words he wanted, Little Black laughed. Since Big Brother said so, then I'll hug Big Brother's arm. Ha! Little Black pounced and instantly fell into Wu Ming's arms. Wu Ming subconsciously caught Little Black. Ah! Little Black, how can you do this? Ilya shouted and hurriedly ran to Wu Ming's side. As a girl, how can you be so immature? As she spoke, Ilya tugged at Little Black's arm that was hugging Wu Ming. Ilya is jealous, right? Do you want to do it together with me? Little Black rolled his eyes and said sneakily. Ha! That. Ilya was slightly hesitant and stunned. Seeing the hesitant Ilya, Little Black felt as if he had caught something that could be used against her. As expected, Ilya is jealous. Ah. I'm not. Anyway, let go of Big Brother. Ilya started tugging again with a red face. That, Ilya, Little Black, let go of Big Brother first. Mayu sat beside Wu Ming and said shyly. Since it's like this, then let's hug Big Brother together. Little Black decided to just go with the flow. What a sinful man. Bazette shook his head. Lolicon. Rin and Osaka and Luia said in disdain. This king is happy to see this side of teacher. Young Gil pretended to be mature as he looked at Wu Ming. Wu Ming's face was filled with helplessness. All right, let's stop when it's appropriate. Wu Ming raised his hand and instantly slammed it down. Bam! Chapter 280. Wu Ming raised his hand and slashed down. The hand blade that landed consecutively hit young Jill, Ilya, and Little Black's heads. Ugh! Ilya held her head and yelled. It hurts. Big Brother, what are you doing? Little Black protested. You guys are already considered light. Wu Ming pointed at young Gil. Ilya and Little Black turned around and saw that young Gil had fainted on the spot. Smoke was rising from his head. Ah. Then why is Mayu fine? Little Black saw that his attack had failed and quickly changed the target. Ha! Mayu was shocked. Mayu is very obedient, unlike you and Ilya. As he said that, Wu Ming patted Mayu's head. Mayu cooperatively rubbed her head against his. Little Black and Ilya stared at Wu Ming and Mayu with puffed-up cheeks. Seeing Ilya and Little Black's reaction, Wu Ming quickly patted their heads and apologized. All right, it's my fault. I'll treat you guys to something later as an apology. Please forgive me. That's more like it. I say, it's about time to continue the topic. Rin Anbin held his forehead helplessly. That's right. Jokes are enough. After all, we still have serious matters to attend to. Lu Weya nodded. Wu Ming patted Ilya and Little Black's heads again and gestured for them to return to their seats. Knowing that it was time to be serious, the two of them returned to their seats. As for Meiyu, she naturally continued to sit beside Wuming. Last night, I purposely went to the new Yuanzhong mountain to investigate. As he spoke, Wuming began to recall. Wuming cast a few concealment tactics on himself and quietly arrived at the Yuanzhong mountain. As expected, part of the ley lines have been replaced. Wuming crouched on the ground with one hand on the ground and examined the ley lines of the Yuanzhong mountain. Wuming stood up and looked in the direction of the entrance. Meiyu had once told Wuming that when she first came to this world, she had walked out of the big hole. In this way, through counter-evidence, the enemy should have appeared in the big hole in the Yuanzhong mountain. With that said, Wuming walked towards the entrance of the large hole. Wuming stopped when he was about to approach. To be safe, let's use this, Wuming said as he reached his hand into the golden ripples and took out a card. It depicted a person wearing a skull mask and holding a curved dagger. This was the Assassin class card. Class card Assassin, Install, Dream Summon. In an instant, Wuming's mana wrapped around the class card. Then, the class card melted and turned into a ball of mana that wrapped around Wuming. After the mana calmed down, Wuming appeared in a black robe. The hooded black robe wrapped tightly around Wuming, only his face was exposed. Wuming wore a skull mask that could only cover his eyes. In addition to his expressionless face, anyone would think that he was an emotionless killer. As expected, it's the cursed wrist again. With that said, Wuming revealed an arm that was hidden under the cloak. The arm was wrapped in bandages and no skin could be seen. However, it was no different from Wuming's normal arm except for an extra layer of bandages. At this moment, the arm wrapped in bandages was emitting wisps of black gas that spread towards Wuming's body. The arm of the demon god. No wonder Shinji Midu was deranged. Even without the side effects of the card, ordinary people would be corroded by this arm. To think that he could still maintain a little bit of self-awareness. Wuming felt the evil energy from his arm as if it could not be suppressed and was about to corrode Wuming. However, since it's just a mere power, you should calm down. With that said, wisps of lightning burst out from Wuming's body. Wuming's bandaged arm seemed to be trembling. The black gas was retracted and it calmed down. Wuming retracted his arm under his robe and disappeared from where he stood in a flash. Inside the Yuanzhong mountain. Two females appeared here. The one on the left spoke first. This should be the Yuanzhong mountain of the other world. She was dressed strangely. Her lower body was covered in golden armor and her upper body was only covered by clothes that covered her chest. There were red patterns on her abdomen and waist and golden armor on her arms. Her hair was tied into two thin ponytails with a decorative horn embedded on one side of the ponytails. Coupled with her cold eyes, she had the aura of a queen. This woman was none other than Angelica Ainsworth, the one who used the Gilgamesh card. Really, it's just a holy grail. Why would the two of us need to make a move? Isn't this too much of a fuss? The one on the right spoke. She had red hair that was tied into two ponytails. She wore tattered fur clothes that covered her abdomen. Her lower body was covered in fur, and her legs were covered with fur boots that looked like long boots. Her golden eyes were filled with raging madness, accompanied by a wide smile, which made people feel terrified. However, the most terrifying thing was her right hand. Her huge right hand was as thick as a small car and she was holding a hammer that was filled with lightning. Don't be careless, Beatrice Frauerchad. Although Hyunryong was defeated by Lord Julian, he was absorbed by the Holy Grail that crossed over here. There's no guarantee that he won't come back to life. Don't forget, when you used the Hercules card, you were killed by him. If Lord Julian didn't save you, you wouldn't be standing here. After listening to Angelica's words, the girl named Beatrice was a little scared. At that time, the berserker who came with Atlas was Beatrice. For some unknown reason, Beatrice, who used the berserker class card, completely went berserk, and her appearance became the same as the original berserker. When Wu Ming invaded her inner world, Beatrice had a mental breakdown because of Wu Ming. She directly contacted the dream summoning and turned into a puppet and disappeared. Although that's the case, you're not dead. Compared to the others, you're easier to control. This is why Lord Julian replaced you, Angelica said coldly. Yes, I know. Beatrice pretended to say helplessly, but she still looked quite arrogant. However, Angelica wouldn't say anything to Beatrice. As a puppet, all she needed to do was to obey her master's orders and nothing else was required. Let's go. Lord Mayu should be here. Let's complete the mission as soon as possible. What should I say? Knowing that I'm likely to be here, Julian only sent 2 people. A voice came from the void. Who is it? Chapter 281. Angelica and Beatrice were both shocked. Both of them did not notice the incoming enemy. A black figure walked out of the shadows. Why, I haven't seen you for 2 months. Don't you recognize me, Angelica? The person took off his hood and revealed his face. It's you. Wu Ming, no, I should call you Hyunryong. Angelica's eyes narrowed suddenly. It's him. Compared to Angelica, Beatrice's performance was much worse. She clearly felt the fear in her heart. It was Wu Ming who invaded her inner world and caused her to have a mental breakdown and disappear. The one beside you is the berserker, right? Wu Ming seemed to recognize Beatrice and looked at her. After all, Wu Ming was the one who caused her to have a mental breakdown. Wu Ming naturally knew what she looked like in her inner world. How pitiful. She was used as a puppet by Julian again. Wu Ming was not surprised. He just felt a little pity. After understanding Beatrice's inner world, Wu Ming really felt sorry for this girl. However, although he felt sorry for her, Wu Ming would not show mercy to his enemies. Damn it. Don't underestimate me. Beatrice was furious when she felt Wu Ming's pitiful eyes. In an instant, the giant hammer in Beatrice's hand flashed with purple lightning and sizzled. Zila dash. Beatrice controlled the purple lightning and blasted it in Wu Ming's direction. Is this lightning that can cause harm to God? After Wu Ming became a god slayer, even if he left the world of god slayers, the god slayer's physique remained with Wu Ming. It had a very high magic resistance. Spells that did not reach the god level would not work on god slayers. Only magic that could cause harm to God or pure physical attacks could cause harm to god slayers. This special effect naturally included Wu Ming's avatar as a servant. But, if that's all, then there's no need to defend. As Wu Ming spoke, he did not do anything. He only used his physical body to take Beatrice's lightning attack. The result was naturally intact. What? He took my attack with just his physical body, and he's still intact. Beatrice was in disbelief. After all, Wu Ming, who had undergone the root baptism and had grown a lot, could be regarded as a top existence among fantasy breeds. As a top existence of fantasy breeds, his defense could not be broken by an ordinary attack, even if he was a servant's avatar. It doesn't look like you used a defensive ability or the ability of a class card. Angelica frowned. Did you recognize the class card I'm using now? You're right. After all, you're a member of the Ainsworth family. I'm showing off in front of an expert. With that said, Wu Ming cancelled the assassin class card. But then again, Ainsworth's things are really useful. Wu Ming smiled. It seems that the class cards that were scattered in this world should have been recovered by you, Angelica said indifferently. Why, do you want it? Wu Ming put the assassin into the golden ripple, but he was not in a hurry to take his hand out. I don't think you'll just give us the class card, Hyunryong. Angelica narrowed her eyes. Of course, as long as your goal is still Mayu. With that said, Wuming pulled his hand out of the golden ripple, and along with Wuming's hand, he pulled out the golden twisted scepter. Then we're enemies. Noble and powerful, wise and kind, I will incarnate into a miracle and lead the world to the dawn. With the chanting of the soul language, Wuming's magic power seemed to have become endless, and it spread to the surroundings wantonly. This huge amount of magic power. Angelica and Beatrice raised their hands and subconsciously resisted the storm caused by Wuming's magic power. The power of the magician incarnation was not only able to give people protection, enhance the power of magic, and speed up the chanting of spells. The most important thing was that after activating the magician incarnation, Wuming's magic output was doubled. For example, Wuming's magic power was a lake. Usually, Wuming relied on the tap connected to his home to extract water. Now, Wuming relied on opening the dam gate to extract water. What did this mean? This meant that Wuming who activated the magician incarnation could use more powerful magic. Wuming touched the ground with the bottom of the staff of Ain's Urgong. Just in an instant, Angelica and Beatrice found that the scene around them changed. The two of them stood on a huge rock in the middle of an endless expanse of magma. As for Wuming, he floated in the sky and looked down at the two of them from above. Inherent barrier, Nazaric 7th layer of magma hell. The magician's buff allowed Wuming to instantly activate the inherent barrier. Not only that, but the inherent barrier was also strengthened. This is inherent barrier. Beatrice broke out in cold sweat. Even if she knew that Angelica had a world-defying noble phantasm, Beatrice, who already had a psychological fear of Wuming, was even more afraid. Let me give you a greeting, ladies. Wuming gracefully performed an ancient noble's etiquette, and then raised the staff of Ain's Urgong. Parallel deployment, super magic, fall down. Countless interlocking magic circles constantly appeared in every corner of the inherent barrier. The sky, magma, rocks, almost every place was occupied by magic circles, except for a few meters around the two. Countless magic circles seemed to be connected, and one by one, all the magic circles flashed with blue light. Not good. Angelica quickly activated Gate of Babylon, and countless golden ripples appeared around Angelica and Beatrice. There were simply too many of them. It was impossible to use the Gate of Babylon's noble phantasm to destroy all of these magic circles that were obviously not to be trifled with. Beatrice. If you don't want to die, hurry up and defend. Angelica said to Beatrice anxiously. I know it even if you don't say it. Beatrice was sweating, and the giant hammer in her hand produced violent lightning. Well, that's it. If you can survive, then I will return the class card to you. After that, Wuming smiled and disappeared from the inherent barrier. A few seconds after Wuming disappeared, all the magic circles seemed to have reached the limit, and they burst out with amazing light and heat, dyeing the entire inherent barrier into a world of light. Chapter 282. After that, I immediately activated the spell that transmigrated through parallel worlds overnight, bringing you and the Shoayu residents here while you were still asleep. Wuming finished his explanation. In other words, when the enemy attacked, you wiped them out and brought us to the enemy's lair. Rin and Osaka summarized. If only it was as easy as you make it out to be. Wuming looked at Rin and Osaka helplessly. But the enemy was indeed wiped out by you, wasn't it? Rin and Osaka waved his hand. Speaking of which, if you were able to wipe out the enemy's strongest force, how did you get defeated? Livia raised her doubts. In his explanation, Wuming said that the enemy was the Ainsworth family's strongest force. This has nothing to do with strength. Wuming shook his head. Look at Gil, he was also defeated by me. Wuming then pointed at young Gil who had woken up. Did I fall asleep just now? I think I dreamt that sensei knocked on my head and my head hurt. Young Gil had a pained expression as he held his head with one hand. That's true, all right. Ilya retorted helplessly. Cough anyway, the enemy used something that countered me and tricked me. I'm not the same person now. Wu-Ming continued. Also, the most important thing is that Mount Yuanzhang exploded again. Wu-Ming helplessly waved his hand. What? Everyone was shocked. That. Because I was a little interested, yesterday's move was a little exaggerated. Ahahaha. Wu-Ming laughed awkwardly. Although Wu-Ming released his supreme level magic in his own inherent barrier and the inherent barrier was strengthened by the magician's attribute, the supreme level magic that Wu-Ming used yesterday was one of the best supreme level magic spells that focused on destruction. Moreover, because of the sorcerer avatar's bonus, the super magic that originally required a long time to be released could be released in just a dozen seconds. Also, because Wu-Ming used magic power explosion once, Wu-Ming used parallel spread, and the supreme level magic he used almost covered the entire inherent barrier. The so-called parallel spread was a move that used multiple skills. This was the skill that Wu-Ming analyzed from the class card. After all, it was troublesome to use supreme level magic one by one, so Wu-Ming simply used parallel spread and released countless supreme level magic spells. Moreover, Wu-Ming also used chain formation, which linked the power of each magic formation to get the result of 1 + 1 + 1, + 1 equals infinity. That was also related to Wu-Ming's double authority. That was the power of Wu-Ming's noble phantasm, 12 incarnations. Each incarnation could be said to be a powerful noble phantasm. However, those noble phantasm could only be used by Wu-Ming alone, because the magical power consumed by those noble phantasm was comparable to the magical power of a holy grail. Then, after being hit by such a powerful attack, the inherent barrier was directly broken. Even the Yuanzhang mountain seemed to have been hit by a meteor once again. Wu-Ming didn't know how the news reported this time. That night, Wu-Ming directly used sorcery to leave. Well, after all, it's also an accident that I caused, it's better to run away quickly. Wu-Ming waved his hand awkwardly. Really, even if that's the case, the magic association won't trouble you. What are you afraid of? Rin Anbin helplessly stroked his cheek. So, if we just follow such a big building to the parallel world, won't it attract the attention of the officials? Livia asked. It had to be said that Livia had asked a good question. Of course not. As you know, I lived in this world for a while. I also have my own house in Winterwood City in this world. When I moved Shoasuke's house here, I chose to exchange it with this world's house. Wu-Ming said with a smile, then waved his hand, and a screen appeared in front of everyone. On the screen, a house similar to Shoasuke's house appeared. This is the original location of Shoasuke's house. I have moved the house in this world, and now the house in this world is Shoasuke's house. Wu-Ming explained. As expected, there are many times when I feel that Wu-Ming is a friend and not an enemy. That's great. Rin Anbin sighed and then said. I have to say, Rin Anbin is right. It's great that you're not an enemy. Livia also said. You're making it sound too serious. Wu-Ming laughed. The enemy is more difficult to deal with than you think. Speaking of the enemy, we still don't know the exact situation of the enemy. Big brother, can you explain to us about the Ainsworth family? Ilya looked at Wu-Ming curiously. Ainsworth family, huh? Wu-Ming thought for a moment. Okay then. Then, they moved to the conference room. Wu-Ming sat solemnly at the head of the table. Everyone sat in their own seats and looked at Wu-Ming meticulously. First of all, the Ainsworth family is a family that specializes in substitution magic. However, because they specialize in substitution magic, they have developed the originally inferior substitution magic to its peak. No matter if it's space, personality, heroic spirit power, or even traveling to a parallel world, they can do it all. That's how they created the class cards. As he spoke, Wuming took out 6 class cards and slapped them on the table. Just in case, may you, Ilya, take these 6 class cards first. As he spoke, Wuming tossed the class cards to Mayu and Ilya. Hey, shoot, Ilya made a cute sound with the help of the card. I'll teach you dream summoning personally later. Mayu and Ilya nodded. The Ainsworth family usually relies on heroic spirit cards and substitution magic. They don't have any effective strategies for this. Well, I'm not prepared to let you go to the battlefield anyway. Wuming waved his hand. Everyone was stunned. What do you mean by not letting us go to the battlefield? Rin and Osaka slammed the table and stood up. You didn't hear wrong. It's the literal meaning, Wuming said calmly. Let's not talk about you and Livia. I'm not prepared to let Mayu and Ilya go to the battlefield either. But, Brother Wuming. Mayu looked at Wuming with some reluctance. Ilya did the same. I don't have a choice. The enemy's battlefield is no ordinary disaster. I gave you the class cards so that you can protect yourselves. In truth, Wuming had never intended to let them go to the battlefield. Whether it was before or after they persuaded Wuming. Chapter 283. I've always been prepared to attack Ainsworth from the front, whether you come or not, Wuming said solemnly. That's because Ainsworth's army is an army of heroic spirits. As soon as Wuming said that, everyone's eyes narrowed. Wait a minute. Are you saying that Ainsworth has created a lot of class cards? Livia asked, puzzled. No matter how they thought about it, it was impossible, right? Everyone could not help but think. It's indeed impossible, but the opponent has an item that can mass-produce Black Mud followers. Black Mud followers. That's right. Those are inferior heroes who failed in their pursuit of the Holy Grail. As long as their obsession is not destroyed, they can be resurrected infinitely. Wuming could not help but think of the scene where he was tricked. Countless black mud covered the sky and covered the earth. The black mud came from an item in Julian's hand, Pandora's box. Wuming had seen clearly that there were followers hidden in the black mud. However, in order to deal with Wuming, these followers were turned into waves by the black mud and engulfed Wuming. Moreover, what worried Wuming the most was that the black mud was mixed with the root dragon's aura, which was the aura of the great root. This was equivalent to increasing the power of these black mud followers. Against such a group of powerful troops who were not afraid of death and could resurrect infinitely, Ilya and the others could not deal with it. Leave the specifics to me. Wuming shook his head and did not continue. I didn't expect your help in the first place. Naturally, I didn't include you in the battle force. After all, this is a plan that I've been planning for a long time. My original plan was to only bring Mayu to fight against Ainsworth. But, it's rare for us to come here and help Big Brother. Ilya lowered her head in disappointment. Ilya. Mayu comforted Ilya. Indeed. If it's really as Master said, and the enemy has an army that can resurrect infinitely and isn't afraid of death, I don't think we can defeat them. Bazit said seriously. Wuming sighed when he saw the disappointment on everyone's faces. After all, Wuming didn't take them into account, so Ilya and the others weren't part of his initial plan. However, we can't be sure that the other party won't create new dolls and class cards, so I have a new plan, Wuming said again to comfort everyone. Does this mean that we can help Big Brother? Ilya's eyes lit up. Wuming waved his hand. Well, that's only if the other party has card users of other ranks. Before I explain the plan, let me pick up 2 people first. Pick someone up. Ah, that's right. Pick someone up. Wuming laughed mischievously. In the main hall of the Shuoyu residence, a red-haired boy with orange pupils and a purple-haired girl with purple pupils stood together. Looking at the way they held hands, it was obvious that they were a couple. Nice to meet you, everyone. I'm Shiro Omiya. Nice to meet you, I'm Sakura Midu. Nice to meet you. The two of them greeted a large number of unfamiliar faces politely. That's right, the two of them were Shiro Omiya and Sakura Midu, who were saved by Gem Master. They were now brought back by Wuming. After Wuming and Meiyu left, just as Shiro Omiya was about to be captured by Angelica, Zelik appeared and took Shiro Omiya away. As for Sakura Midu, she had been taken away by Zelik earlier, so Angelica could only find Shiro Omiya in the Omiya mansion. Omiya-kun. Rin Dosaka had a shocked expression. Soro. Luvia had a look of disbelief. Brother. Ilya and Xiaohei were dumbfounded. As for Bizet, since he didn't know Shiro Omiya at all, he didn't make a fuss about it. Shiro Nii-chan, Sakura Nii-chan, long time no see. Meiyu, on the other hand, bowed politely after seeing the two of them. Meiyu, long time no see, Shiro greeted with a smile. Thank you for your concern, Meiyu-chan, Sakura Midu replied gently. On the other hand, young Gil kept sizing up Shiro Omiya. Is this sensei's younger brother in this world? Although he looks good, I feel disgusted. For some reason, young Gil didn't like Shiro Omiya. Why is brother here? Ilya's eyes widened as she looked at Wuming in disbelief. Rin Dosaka and Luvia, who had calmed down, reacted. I'm afraid he's Shiro Omiya in this parallel world, the two of them said. Well. Anyway, that's how it is. Wuming, who was standing at the side, shrugged. Shiro is a human who doesn't need a class card to unleash the power of a heroic spirit. Everyone instantly looked at Shiro Omiya in surprise. Well. Brother is right. Due to an accident, I connected to myself in a parallel world. After I died in that world, I became a heroic spirit. Shiro Omiya helplessly touched the back of his head. That's amazing. To be able to become a heroic spirit, as expected of brother, Ilya said in surprise. Indeed, even if you become a heroic spirit in a parallel world, it also means that you have the qualifications to become a heroic spirit in this world, Bazet said solemnly. By the way, Little Black, your card is Omiya the heroic spirit. Is that for real? Little Black was shocked. Wuming didn't say anything. He only smiled and shrugged. Speaking of which, Wuming looked at Shiro Omiya and Sakura Midu, who were holding hands. Looks like you and Sakura have made good progress while I was away. Shiro, when are you going to officially meet me as your guardian? Wuming looked at Shiro Omiya with a smile. When Wuming said that, Sakura Midu's face instantly turned red. Big brother. Omiya could only laugh dryly. Rin and Osaka and Luvia's expressions darkened. Although the Shiro Omiya in front of them wasn't the Shiro Omiya they knew, no matter what, the Shiro Omiya in this world was indeed Shiro Omiya. Seeing Shiro Omiya with another woman, the two of them felt uneasy. Bam! Bam! After 2 consecutive karate chops, Rin and Osaka and Luvia calmed down. Well, no matter what, I'll congratulate the two of you. Before Wuming picked up Shiro Omiya and Sakura Midu, he learned from Zelik that the two of them were sent by Zelik to be under Emilo II's management and become his disciples. Wuming felt that this was a good thing. Wuming had met Emilo II before, and he was a very reliable magician. Zelik told the two that Wuming and Meiyo's situation was very safe and that they didn't need to worry. They only needed to study in the clock tower. Therefore, During this period of study, Shiro Amiya and Sakura Madu's relationship quickly warmed up and they quickly became a couple. Congratulations, big brother and big sister. Congratulations, Shiro, Gij, big sister Sakura. Congratulations to the two newlyweds. Congratulations. Apart from Rin and Osaka and Livia, the others naturally congratulated the three of them. Thank you, everyone. Shiro Amiya and Sakura Madu smiled. Well, it won't be too late to hold the wedding after everything is settled. After saying that, everyone became extremely serious. Chapter 284. They redistributed their seats and sat in the meeting room. Wuming still sat at the head of the table. Rin Anbin, Livia, Shiro Amiya, and Sakura Madu sat on Wuming's left. Bizet, Ilya, Little Black, and Meiyu sat on Wuming's right. Gil sat across from Wuming. Since everyone is here, let's start the official allocation. Wuming crossed his arms in front of his chest with a solemn expression. Everyone felt the solemn atmosphere and puffed out their chests. Since the other party's goal is the Holy Grail, Ilya, Little Black, and Meiyu will be on standby at the Shuiue mansion. Wuming was the first to speak. Why is it like this? Ilya said with slight displeasure. Well, there's nothing we can do about it. The other party's goal is the Holy Grail. Other than Meiyu, you and I might also be the other party's target, Little Black advised. Although Meiyu was slightly dissatisfied, she was also someone who knew the severity of the situation. Hence, she nodded. When Ilya saw that her two companions agreed with Wuming's words, she could only nod helplessly in the end. Well, don't be unhappy. I'll make something nice for you later. Wuming comforted Ilya. Really? Big brother is the best. Ilya smiled happily. Boo-hoo. Big brother is unfair. I want to eat too. Little Black looked like an abandoned puppy. He lay on the table and stared at Wuming. That. Meiyu also looked at Wuming hesitantly. She knew that she could not always cause trouble for her big brother. However, Meiyu really wanted to eat her big brother's delicacies. Wuming did not know whether to laugh or cry. Then let's make glutinous rice balls. There will be a share for all three of us. How about that? Little Black said excitedly. I'm looking forward to it. Ilya said expectantly. Meiyu nodded lightly. Looking at the three of them who were extremely happy, Wuming smiled from the bottom of his heart. At this moment, there was a loud bang. Rin Anbin slammed the table and stood up. You guys. We're in the middle of a battle conference. Can you be more serious? Shiro Amiya and Sakura Madu smiled awkwardly but did not say anything. After all, he was their big brother. They had to give him some face. However, the others didn't give him any face, especially Rin and Osaka and Lu Weiya, who had been provoked. After all, this is the enemy's time, so let's hurry up. Lu Weiya said angrily, and then turned her head away. Needless to say, Lu Weiya didn't want to see the palace guard, who was already taken, showing off his affection. Sorry, let's continue with the battle conference. Wuming coughed awkwardly. The three little Lolas also blushed. Rin Anbin and Luzes, you too. To be honest, Wuming had a headache. Although these two girls were students of the clock tower, they were comparable to first-class magicians. However, in a battle where servants were involved, they were undoubtedly useless. You could say that they were a little hurt, but it happened that the damage they caused was not a big deal at all. Wuming touched his forehead, thought for a moment, and then said. How about this, you two also stay in Shoasuke's house. In this regard, Rin Enbin and Luz didn't show much dissatisfaction. Although they said that they wanted to help, after knowing that the enemy was a servant, they basically gave up the idea of going to the battlefield. Although it was a bit of putting the cart before the horse, Rin Enbin and Luz still wanted to thank Wuming for not treating them as a burden. After all, Wuming didn't want them to come here together. Because of their personal reasons, they were brought here by Wuming. For such a result, the two couldn't say that they were disappointed, but they couldn't say that they were happy. After all, no one wanted to be treated as a useless guy. But, you're different from Ilya and the others. You need to help me drive Shuosuke's. Ha! The two were not surprised by Wuming's SSSS. That. Big brother, what do you mean by driving Shuosuke's? Rin Enbin and Luz were puzzled. Ilya and the others were also quite puzzled. It means literally. Wuming finished and snapped his fingers. Then, with a pop sound, countless blue semi-virtual screens appeared in the conference room. On the countless blue virtual screens in the conference room, almost all of them showed something that not only Ilya and the others couldn't understand, but even Shiro Omiya, who lived with Wuming for a long time, couldn't understand. Wuming's hand gently moved, and a large number of blue virtual screens were removed, and a special virtual screen floated above Wuming's head. The reason why it was special was that this screen was all about Shuosuke's and the surrounding real-time surveillance, including the surveillance of the conference room. Looking at the countless partitions, everyone was surprised. Is this a magic workshop? No matter how I look at it, it looks like a laboratory. Rin Enbin said helplessly. Well, this is a temple I modified according to modern times. Not only does it have real-time surveillance, but it also has visual obstruction enchantment, magic suppression enchantment platform, autonomous attack chain enchantment, and other autonomous enchantments for attack, defense, and investigation. It also has space folding technology. As long as it is activated, the internal space of Shuosuke's will be instantly enlarged by 100 times, and I have set up all kinds of traps that can be imagined. In addition, there are flight and transformation functions, and after referring to Gil's Vimana, I also added a few nuclear warheads. Wuming said, pointing to the innocent young Gil. Everyone looked at Wuming, who was talking non-stop, and they were all stunned, looking at Wuming blankly. All in all, this is a multifunctional strategic mobile fortress. I named it Shuosuke Temple. Wuming finished and breathed a sigh of relief. No wonder I always felt that the house has become a little different. It turned out that it was transformed by my brother. Shiro Omiya sighed. No, Shiro Onie-san, brother Wuming did not transform Omiya Mansion, but built a new one in the parallel world. Miyu pointed out Shiro Omiya's misunderstanding. Well, when I built this house, it was not only to be my and Mayo's home. I have been planning to counterattack Ainsworth, of course, I have to be prepared. Wuming waved his hand, indicating that everyone should not make a fuss. Since I met you, my heart has almost gotten used to it. Same, Rin and Osaka and Livia both sighed at the same time. Well, at first, I just wanted to build a defense base, and it slowly developed into this. Wuming scratched his head. In short, your task is to be responsible for assisting us on the battlefield. I will teach you how to use it later. Then, Wuming turned his head and looked at Shiro Omiya and Sakura Midu. Shiro, Sakura, I ask you two again, do you really want to participate? Chapter 285. Wuming asked Shiro Omiya and Sakura Midu when he went to pick them up from England. Do you really want to participate in this battle? I've already returned and am fully prepared. It doesn't matter if you don't participate. Wuming said. Shiro Omiya and Sakura Midu answered. Brother, I've been working hard to learn magic here just to wait for this day. I'll be wherever Senpai is. And now, their answers were exactly the same as before. Mayo's friends have all come to this world. As her brother, I can't fall behind. I'll be wherever Senpai is. This is also my way of repaying Brother Wuming for saving my life. Shiro Amiya and Sakura Madu's eyes were filled with determination. I'm really an idiot for asking you such a question. Wuming shook his head self-deprecatingly. Since you've already decided, then as your brother, I can only fully support you. Shiro and Sakura, you two will be in charge of the attack on Julian. Wuming arranged. However, when he mentioned Julian, Shiro Amiya still felt a little gloomy. After all, he considered himself to be a good friend. By the way, Shiro, I'll help you adjust your body later. And Sakura, remember to give me your rank card later. Rank cards created by those things, even if it's just pure strength, will erode your mind if you use it for a long time. Shiro Amiya and Sakura Madu both nodded. Then, Wuming looked at Bazette, who had been silent all this time. Wuming actually didn't know how to deal with Bazette. Originally, it was only because of his bad taste that he let Bazette become a servant of the Shuoyu residents, and he was half forced to come to the parallel world with him. After all, the backlight sword was a super bug-like existence. Even if Wuming's heart was super strong, he wouldn't dare take this causal weapon head-on. Who knew if his heart was strong enough? After all, the backlight sword only changed karma to strike the heart, and it didn't necessarily pierce through the heart. Of course, if his main body was here, there was nothing to be afraid of. You don't have to care about what I think. This is a mission given to me by the higher-ups. The only thing I can do is fight. Bazette seemed to know what Wuming was thinking, so he said this. Bazette had received news from his superiors that he was to follow Hyunryong to the parallel world, complete all his instructions, and bring back as much information as possible. Of course, those were added by Bazette's superiors. After all, it wasn't easy for them to come to parallel world, so how could they not collect some items? As for the matter of Wuming going to the parallel world, Wuming had told Zelik that there was no need to deliberately hide it. Instead of letting the higher-ups who were worried about Wuming's departure have wild thoughts and add trouble to Wuming, it was better to let them feel at ease and be obedient. Since you've said so, follow me to the battlefield. Then, follow Shiro and Sakura as a member of the execution team and attack the enemy leader. After all, you're not the type to fight in groups. I understand. Bazette nodded solemnly. Finally, Wuming looked at young Gil, who was sitting opposite him, and said, "Then, the last one is you, my disciple. Teacher, do you have a mission? I will be very obedient." Young Gil smiled elegantly and gently. No matter how one looked at him, he looked like an innocent and beautiful boy. If it's you, you don't need me to assign you a mission. Just act according to the situation, Wuming said with a look of disdain. Ah! Why are you like this, teacher? Young Gil looked at Wuming as if he had been bullied. Well, but since it's teacher's words, I can only obey. Wuming ignored young Gil and looked at everyone. Then that's it. Ilya, Mayu, and Blackie will stay behind at the Shuoyu mansion and act according to the situation. Ling and Livia will be responsible for driving the Shuoyu mansion as support. Shiro, Sakura, and Bazette will be the execution team, specifically targeting Julian. Gil will roam the battlefield, and I will be responsible for resisting the army. Does anyone have any questions? At this moment, Ilya raised her hand. Ilya. Wuming called her name. Yes, I want to know how Big Brother is going to resist the servant army. Is he going to fight alone? If not, Mayu, Blackie, and I can also help. Ilya said with concern. You don't have to worry about this at all. The one who spoke was not Wuming, but Shiro Amiya. Big Brother has an army. Shiro Amiya was naturally talking about the golem Wuming summoned from Nazalik. At that time, because of various skills flying around on the battlefield, countless golem that were comparable to low-level servants were lost, and the rest were swallowed by the black mud in their struggle. Fortunately, those were only projections, and Wuming could naturally continue to summon them. However, even if there were many small soldiers, they were still small soldiers in front of an expert. However, Wuming naturally had a new idea. You don't need to worry about that. I'm not going to fight against an army alone. Wuming smiled. Well, I'll adjust Shiro's physical condition first. Everyone else, go and rest first. For a moment, only Shiro Omiya and Sakura Midu were left in the conference room. Sakura Midu stayed behind to give the rank card to Wuming later, and to accompany Shiro Omiya. Well, take off your clothes first. Wuming spoke first. Oh! Shiro Omiya and Sakura Midu both exclaimed. Looking at Sakura Midu, who was blushing, and looking at Shiro Omiya, who was slightly embarrassed, Wuming shook his head. Looking at the two's performance, Wuming knew that the two probably hadn't reached that stage yet. They probably just held hands, hugged, and kissed. It's going to happen sooner or later anyway. Hurry up and take it off. Do you need me to help you? Wuming narrowed his eyes, looked at Shiro Omiya, and said threateningly. I know, big brother. As someone who lived with Shiro Omiya for almost 5 years, Shiro Omiya naturally understood Wuming's temperament. Therefore, Shiro Omiya quickly took off his clothes, leaving only his underwear on. The naked Wei Gong Shirlang revealed a body full of strength but not exaggerated muscles. This was the legendary saying, wearing clothes makes one look thin, but taking off clothes makes one look muscular. At this moment, Sakura Midu, who was looking at her lover's body, was already blushing and didn't dare to look over. Ahem, I only told you to take off your upper body. Why did you take off your lower body? Wuming laughed mischievously. Ah. Shiro Omiya, who was still blushing, suddenly looked helpless. This is good, it's easier to adjust your body. Wuming quickly said. Then, Wuming snapped his fingers, and a device similar to a man-made transparent culture tank rose from the floor of the conference room. Chapter 286. Let's go in, Wuming said. Shiro Omiya looked at Wuming, then looked at Sakura Midu, and then walked toward the open container. When he reached the opening, Wuming pushed Shiro Omiya, and then slammed the container door shut. Really, this is not a life and death parting, do you have to be so serious, sigh young people nowadays. Wuming pretended to shake his head helplessly. Shiro Omiya and Sakura Midu, who were originally shocked, were slightly embarrassed after hearing Wuming's words. Noble and powerful, wise and kind, that is, I will incarnate into a miracle and lead the world to the dawn. Wuming didn't say much nonsense and directly activated the magician incarnation. After all, this was a problem with magic, and this incarnation was more useful. Wuming stood in front of the container and stretched out a hand. Then, let's begin. After that, a golden magic circle the size of Wuming's palm appeared and kept rotating. The container, which originally only contained Shiro Omiya, was instantly filled with liquid, and Shiro Omiya blew a bubble. The originally featureless container also began to glow. Senpai. Sakura Midu ran to the front of the container worriedly. Onie-sama, what's going on, won't Senpai drown? Looking at Sakura Midu's anxious expression, Wuming smiled helplessly. Don't worry, these are just some liquid that can make people get oxygen in an environment where they can't breathe. They are often used in the creation of androids, so don't worry. After hearing Wuming's words, Sakura Midu relaxed and breathed a sigh of relief. I use hypnosis magic, Shiro, you can have a good sleep. When you wake up, you will find that your body is very good. Wuming's words faintly, Shiro Omiya's eyelids began to slowly close in the container. Wu Ming stretched out his hand and took out a book from the golden ripples that appeared at the side. That book was Wu Ming's noble phantasm, the nameless spellbook. Then, I'll start. After that, Wu Ming closed his eyes, held the nameless spellbook in one hand, and the other hand was flat on his chest, pointing to the container where Shiro Omiya was, and the magic circle on his palm began to change. With the addition of the magician avatar, Wu Ming could now directly release some magic without chanting, which was the case now. Many magic spells on the nameless spellbook were frequently used by Wu Ming, constantly acting on Shiro Omiya. In addition to producing culture fluid to make people fall asleep, this culture tank also had the effect of enhancing magic, playing a supporting role. After all, this was designed by Wu Ming, and it was basically according to Wu Ming's habits. Wu Ming stopped the magic circle in his hand, closed the nameless spellbook, and opened his eyes. "Onie-sama, is it done?" Sakura Madu asked with some uncertainty. Wu Ming smiled helplessly. "How is that possible? Shiro's body is even more broken than I thought." Shiro Omiya used his future heroic spirit class card in the parallel world many times, but because he had to send Meiyu away, Shiro Omiya gave up the class card. After that, because the heroic spirit on the class card was the same person as Shiro Omiya, the class card and Shiro Omiya became synchronized. After losing the class card, Shiro Omiya could still continue to use the power of the heroic spirit on the class card. In short, as Shiro Omiya continued to use this power, he began to gradually become a heroic spirit. However, for an ordinary person, this synchronized was a bit too much. Shiro Omiya's body couldn't withstand the burden of becoming a heroic spirit. The power of the heroic spirit was wreaking havoc in Shiro Omiya's body, and if he used this power, it would increase the erosion of the heroic spirit. Not only that, but the class card created by Ainsworth also had the power to erode one's heart and even the body. Every card user's heart would be eroded by the heroic spirit on the class card. Although it wasn't much, over time, their personality would become more like that of the heroic spirit. Perhaps because of the black mud, these class cards had the ability to erode the user's body. This caused Shiro Omiya's body to become quite broken. Wu Ming told all this to Sakura Madu. Sakura Madu covered her mouth in disbelief and stared blankly at Shiro Omiya. "I really didn't expect Shiro to be able to persevere." Wu Ming sighed. "Senpai." Sakura Madu's eyes began to moisten, which was a sign that tears were about to flow out. "Well then, Sakura, please move aside. I'm going to start treating Shiro." "Ah." Sakura Madu turned her head to look at Wu Ming in shock. Wu Ming naturally knew why Sakura Madu was like that. "Well, I didn't say that there was no way to save him. I just said that Shiro's body was seriously damaged." Wu Ming turned his head away and said unnaturally, "I was just joking. Who knew that Sakura would fall into my trap? I'm sorry." "Well, really, Onie-sama is so annoying." Sakura Madu stopped crying and smiled. "If you want to apologize, wait until I completely heal Shiro." Wu Ming smiled apologetically. Then, Wu Ming opened the nameless spellbook again. He still held the book in one hand and held the other hand in front of him, pointing in Shiro's direction. Just like before, a large number of palm-sized magic circles appeared on Wu Ming's palm. The magic circles were interlocked and intertwined. Then, under Wu Ming's command, they attached themselves to the culture tank. The culture tank that was originally shining shone even more brightly. Sakura Madu looked at this scene worriedly. No matter what, Shiro Omiya's body was seriously injured. After a long and short wait, Wu Ming stopped the magic circle in his hand and closed the nameless spellbook. The magic circle attached to the culture tank also turned into magic and disappeared. The culture tank also lost its light, and the culture fluid inside quickly disappeared. "Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. Go and see Shiro, Sakura. Wuming smiled at Sakura Midu. Yes, thank you so much, Onie-sama. Thank you so much. Sakura Midu bowed to Wuming again and again. Wuming didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After all, Shiro is my brother, and you are my sister-in-law. Looking at Sakura Midu who was walking towards the culture tank, Wuming said softly. Puchi, with this sound, the culture tank opened. Cough, cough, cough. Shiro Amiya, who had just adapted to the culture fluid, was not used to the air and coughed a few times as soon as he came out. Senpai, are you okay? Sakura Midu rushed forward and supported Shiro Amiya. I'm fine, Sakura. I'm just not used to the air. Now, I feel like all the impurities in my body have been removed. It's very relaxed. Shiro Amiya smiled and then said as he felt his body. Now, no matter how you use that power, it won't have any effect on your body, Shiro. Chapter 287. Thank you, big brother. Shiro Amiya said sincerely. Wuming knew that he had to accept this gratitude no matter what. What are you talking about? You're my brother. Even if you're my sworn brother, there's no need to say thank you between us. Wuming didn't look back. Wuming waved his hand and put the culture tank on the ground. Sakura, go make something delicious for Shiro. Now Shiro's body needs to be nourished. It's best if it's meat. I remember there's still a lot of meat in the freezer. The freezer's location hasn't changed. Shiro knows where it is. Wuming turned around and said to Sakura Midu who was supporting Shiro Amiya. Yes, I understand. Onie-sama, then I'll leave with Senpai first. Just as Sakura Midu was about to support Shiro Amiya to leave, Wuming said. Don't forget to leave your rank card behind. I didn't help you adjust your rank card. If your life is in danger because you used your rank card too much, I'm afraid Scholar will fight me to the death. Wuming teased at the end. Sakura Midu blushed. What? Big brother, don't drag me into this. Shiro Amiya smiled helplessly. Then, I'll leave it to you, Onie-sama. Sakura Midu took out a card. On it was a picture of a man wearing a beast horn mask, holding a big sword, pretending to be crazy. This was Sakura Midu's Berserker card. The power inside was the Berserk Lancelot. Okay, that's enough. You guys can go now. Wuming took the card and said casually. Berserk Lancelot. The guy known as the Knight of the Lake will also degenerate into a berserker. How ironic. Wuming looked at the class card in his hand and smiled uninterestedly. After that, Wuming began to prepare for the purification of the class cards. The class cards that Ainsworth had made all had the negative ability to corrode one's heart and body. Because Shiro Amiya was using the power of his future self, he was almost immune to the psychological damage, but he couldn't avoid the physical damage. That was because the cards had been soaked in the black mud during the manufacturing process. Wuming carefully delved into it and discovered that the interior of the card had the scent of the black mud. Combined with the fact that a job-grade card could erode a person's body and mind, this job-grade card, including the one Wuming had given to Ilya and the others, as well as the one in Blackie's body, had all been created by the black mud. However, after taking out Wuming and young Gil, as well as the 7 class cards that had been brought to the world of Ilya, they had all been baptized by the Holy Grail known as Mayu, purifying all of these class cards, and the negative effects that corroded one's heart and body had all disappeared. That was what Wuming was doing now. Eliminate all the negative effects that corrode the user's body inside the card. Although Wuming was not the Holy Grail, in terms of spiritual purification, Wuming's noble phantasm, the nameless spellbook, had a lot of spells in this area. Although the two are somewhat different, it should work. Ming said to himself. In the past, what if, noble and powerful, wise and kind, I will become a double miracle and lead the world to the dawn. Ming directly activated the power of double authority. In this way, the purification of the negative effects of the class cards should be foolproof. After all, it was the power of a god, and a mere class card couldn't compete with it at all. Ming placed the nameless spellbook on the table and opened it casually. Ming took the class card and placed the class card on the nameless spellbook. The class card automatically floated above the nameless spellbook. He didn't even need to chant an incantation. The nameless spellbook automatically activated with Ming's thoughts, and began to purify the class cards. As expected, it's because of the black mud. Ming felt the analysis of the class card and frowned. Fortunately, I'm not the same as I used to be after returning to the root. Ming smirked. After that, Ming injected an unknown power into the nameless spellbook. BZZT. Like an ordinary object touching sulfuric acid, the class card made a sizzling sound. Then, a small black gas floated out of the class card and disappeared into nothingness. Done. Ming grabbed the class card. Excessive amounts of ice would seal the flames in the body and extinguish them. However, for the endless flames, a little bit of ice was nothing. It would melt, evaporate, and turn into nothingness. Julian must have realized my return, Ming said thoughtfully. I have to hurry. With the sound of the door closing, Ming left the room. Winterwood City, Big Hollow, Ainsworth Castle. A sloppy middle-aged man with messy hair and thin clothes stood at the highest point of the castle, looking at the scenery in the distance. If one looked closely, one would find that the man's eyes were filled with fanaticism and darkness. Thud. This was the sound of a person half kneeling on the ground. The man didn't turn his head and spoke directly. It seems like you've lost completely, Angelica, Beatrice. The man said with a deep feeling. However, no matter how one listened, one could tell that the owner of the voice was not in a good mood. I'm sorry, Master Darius, we've failed, Angelica said calmly. She was not upset or worried about the failure of the mission. That was right. These two people were Angelica and Beatrice, who Ming thought had no chance of surviving. Although both of them survived Ming's attack, Beatrice was worried about whether she could survive the attack of Master Ainsworth. Beatrice, who was beside Angelica, didn't dare to speak. Beatrice was just like Angelica, half kneeling on the ground, but she didn't say a word. After all, Beatrice was not a pure puppet. She accepted the rank card to become Ainsworth's combat power voluntarily. Because of the effect of Hercules' noble phantasm, Beatrice only fell into a state of suspended animation, so she was not brainwashed by Darius. He did not want those who died to be deprived of emotions and placed on puppets. After all, the other party really volunteered to help him, so there was no need to spend energy to convert them. Mama, I can't blame you. I didn't expect Hyunryong to really resurrect beside our princess. Darius said with joy. The evil dragon that kidnapped the princess, how can a mere soldier bring the princess back? This needs to be done by a brave prince. What do you think? Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Looking at Darius, who was laughing like a lunatic, Angelica and Beatrice did not speak anymore. One felt that there was no need to speak, and the other was too scared to speak. For a moment, Darius stopped laughing, then said calmly to Angelica. Inform those puppets that the enemy is coming. Yes, Master Darius. Chapter 288. On the same day, Ming helped Meiyu and Ilya learn how to use Dream Summon, install. He also guided Xiao Hei while he was at it. Originally, this task should have been given to Shiro Omiya. However, Sakura Madu was worried that Shiro Omiya wouldn't be able to get out of bed. Even the food was personally delivered by Sakura Madu to Shiro Amiya's room. According to Wuming's deduction, he found out that Shiro Amiya was also being fed by Sakura Madu. After all, Wuming could be considered as half a mentor to Shiro Amiya. Although he couldn't use the moves of his disciple, he could still give some pointers to Xiaohei. Subsequently, Xiaohei successfully developed a skill that could be considered a new ability, which made Xiaohei very excited. After that, Wuming made glutinous rice balls for the three of them, making 3 smiling faces and 3 different types of laughter accompany Wuming. After that, Wuming took some free time to find Rin Enbin and Livia. Wuming brought them to the room in the center of the Shuosuki residence and folded the space to reveal the control room. After seeing all this, the people who were originally interested in the control room, including Rin Enbin and Livia, were all shocked. Although this isn't a secret, the control room is also the core of my magic workshop. You two must be obedient and don't cause any trouble. This was Wuming's advice to Rin Enbin and Livia, whose eyes were shining when they saw the control room. Okay. Of course, Wuming wouldn't easily believe that the two wouldn't drop the ball at a critical moment. Therefore, Wuming left Collis behind as an assistant to Rin Enbin and Livia. In addition to supervising Rin Enbin and Livia, Collis had another important task, which was to assist the two in the construction of the magic workshop. After all, this was Kanzaki's shrine. Even if Wuming simplified it to modern technology, the two of them wouldn't be able to learn how to use it in a single day. That night, after dinner, everyone gathered in the conference room again. As usual, Wuming sat at the head of the table, while the others sat on either side of him. Young Gil sat in the middle. Everyone, go to sleep later and conserve your strength. Angelica and Beatrice did not come back. Ainsworth must be able to infer that I am back. Maybe the other party will attack directly regardless of the safety of the Winterwood citizens. Directly. Directly launch an attack. Isn't magic supposed to be hidden and not be known to ordinary people? Will Ainsworth really break this rule? Ilya had been in the magic world for a long time, so she already understood a lot of these rules. Although this world had experienced the experience of almost being destroyed, with the help of Zelik, this world successfully escaped from destruction. Even so, the world's population had decreased to a certain extent, and even now, Winterwood City had not fully recovered to its former prosperity. But the people were not afraid, it was just that the population base had decreased, and they still continued to live. Ainsworth's goal is the Holy Grail. Let's not talk about whether they know that May came back with me. With Ainsworth's idea, as long as they get rid of me, no one can stop them from getting the Holy Grail. Wuming explained. When this world was gradually approaching destruction, the magicians from all over the world were the first victims. As the saying goes, if the sky falls, the tall man will hold it up. After the magicians lost a lot of their lives, Zelik spent a lot of effort to resolve the crisis of this world. As for what the crisis was, Wuming didn't know, nor was he interested in knowing. He only knew that because of the decrease in magicians, the Ainsworth family on the other side of the world had become the local tyrant. This was also the reason why the large pit on the side of Winterwood City had not been repaired for 5 years. I can only say that we can't eliminate the possibility of an attack at night. After all, I have already discovered that they are monitoring this place. Wuming said calmly. Let's leave it at that for the time being. Everyone, go to sleep. If nothing unexpected happens, we will attack Ainsworth tomorrow morning. After Wuming finished speaking, everyone looked at each other and nodded. Night fell, and Wuming looked in the direction of Ainsworth. With a golden light, young Gil appeared beside Wuming. Why are you here? Good boy, you still need to sleep. Wuming looked at young Gil casually. Ha ha ha, teacher is so gentle. Wuming's words made young Gil laugh. I'm actually here to tell you that I sense the aura of my upper body. As soon as young Gil said that, Wuming's body trembled, but he reacted quickly. both of them came back alive. They are so lucky. Wuming squinted his eyes and looked at young Gil. Then, I'll give you your upper body. How about that? Young Jill, on the other hand, smiled gently. Teacher, you must be joking. Although it's my lower body, it has most of my relics. Of course, I know how powerful I am. You want your lower body, right, Gil? Wuming suddenly said. Yes, of course. Of course, I want to be complete. Young Gil said as if it was a matter of course. Now, I suddenly realized that you were the most difficult to deal with when you were young. Wuming suddenly sighed. He relaxed his aura that was always ready. As if he was on vacation, Wuming lay on the roof. After becoming an adult, Gilgamesh was extremely arrogant and complacent. Before becoming an adult, Gilgamesh was gentle and elegant. He always kept his cool. Compared to the guy in front of him who always had a smile and was always calm, Wuming felt that the arrogant and complacent Gilgamesh was easier to talk to. I really hate myself after growing up. I really don't understand why I became like that. Young Gil also put down his smile and returned to his original posture. He leaned against Wuming and sat down. Really, wouldn't it have been better if you were like this earlier? You made both of us so troublesome. Young Gil was like a real child as he casually said to Wuming. Who told you to stare at Mayu so aggressively from the beginning, you idiot? Wuming said as he cursed and hit young Gil's head. I can't help it. After all, my heart has always wanted to obtain the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail is right in front of me. How could I give it up? After all, Wuming did not use much strength. Young Gil only touched his head symbolically and then chatted with Wuming. That's right. Although the two of them had a good relationship as master and disciple, they always seemed to treat each other as outsiders. That was because both of them were pretending. Then, what made you give up on Mayu? Wuming asked young Gil in a tone that said he already knew the answer. You really have a bad taste. You clearly know the reason, yet you still ask me. Young Gil looked helplessly at Wuming. Wuming did not mind young Gil's words. He smiled and looked at the sky without saying anything. That's right. No matter what, Wuming was like Gilgamesh's adoptive father. Even if it was the Gilgamesh of the parallel world, how could Wuming not understand him? Chapter 289. As early as when Wuming and young Gil noticed that there were enemies coming to the parallel world, young Gil had already noticed that half of his body was missing. Originally, I just wanted to destroy them in another world. That way, your body wouldn't be able to come back. Wuming looked at the sky and confessed to young Gil. Of course, I know. You were there at that time. You definitely wouldn't allow me to get my body back, so I didn't ask for much. Young Gil helplessly waved his hand. But they came back alive. Isn't this what people often say about fate? That's it, I'll help you get your body back. You're not allowed to have any ideas about Mayu and the others. Wuming glanced at young Gil. In modern terms, you're really a lolicon. Young Gil laughed heartily. That's it, don't you want the Holy Grail? I'll give you one. Suddenly, Wuming said. Ha! You don't let me have any ideas about Sister Mayu and the others, but you want to give me the Holy Grail. So, where is the Holy Grail that you want to give me? Young Gil was puzzled. You also know that since the fall of the Uruk dynasty, I didn't die. Wuming did not directly tell young Gil where the Holy Grail was. Instead, he talked about his own experience with young Gil. I once went to a world. In that world, there was a different kind of Holy Grail war. Oh, a different kind of Holy Grail war. Young Gil showed great interest. Yes, it was a Holy Grail war with 14 servants. The black side and the red side, each had 7 servants. The black side launched a defensive battle in order to hold the Holy Grail that was already in their hands. The red side launched a siege in order to compete for the Holy Grail that was protected by the black side. Wuming continued to look at the starry sky and spoke leisurely without turning his head. First, Black Saber committed suicide, and Red's Berserker was captured. Then, Black's rider rebelled with an android and became neutral. Red Saber left the main force, and Black's assassin went out of control. Together with the additional supervisor ruler and the cheating servant ruler who survived the previous Holy Grail War, they launched an unprecedented Holy Grail War. Ha ha ha, that sounds like a pretty good show. Even I want to see these clowns. Young Gil laughed with great interest. And then, who took the Holy Grail in the end? Young Gil asked impatiently. Wuming smiled at this. Of course it's me, your teacher. Ha ha ha, I knew it. In this world, only the 2 of us are qualified to possess the Holy Grail. Those clowns are really overestimating themselves. Young Gil wiped the tears from his laughter and looked at Wuming apologetically. Sorry, teacher, it's really funny. So, do you mean to give me the Holy Grail of the Holy Grail War? I originally thought so, but... Wuming said slowly. But... I regret it, my disciple. As if he was playing with young Gil, Wuming said happily. Is that so? It's similar to what I guessed, but it doesn't matter. Young Gil, who originally had a desire for the Holy Grail, now seemed to have entered sage mode. Young Gil also lay down next to Wuming. The Holy Grail is just a desire. I'm now interested in the Holy Grail War you mentioned. When I get back my real body, I'll go to the parallel world to try my luck and see if I can encounter it. After all, there are parallel worlds where the 14 Nights War happened. Even if you're my teacher, I won't accept your charity, young Gil said with a domineering tone. That's right, in young Gil's view, the so-called cooperation now was just young Gil's one-sided weakness. Even if he got back his real body and recovered all his strength, Gilgamesh and Hyunryong could still fight to a draw. In this way, the Holy Grail was charity. You really haven't changed, Gil. Wuming touched young Gil's head and said with some surprise. What do you mean haven't changed? This king has never changed, okay? Young Gil slapped Wuming's hand away in disdain. Do you think Ainsworth will come tonight? Wuming suddenly asked. Heh, isn't that obvious? Young Gil said with some disdain. The clowns are always the first to appear, teacher. Wuming and young Gil sat up and looked at the street not far from the Shuoyu residence. A black figure flashed from there. Assassin, it seems that the other party can't wait. It seems that this is the other party's vanguard. Wuming raised his arm and slid it gently, and a screen appeared in front of Wuming. On the screen, the assassin in a black robe and a skull mask was constantly moving toward here. Vanguard? I think it's cannon fodder. Young Gil smiled. Hassan, I just don't know which Hassan it is, but it doesn't matter. Wuming obviously recognized the true identity of this assassin. It couldn't be helped, Hassan was too easy to recognize. Maybe it's one of the dozen Hassans. It doesn't matter. After all, it's just a clown among clowns. Young Gil waved his hand casually. You're right. Wuming smiled as well. At that moment, Hassan, who was approaching the Shuoyu residence, suddenly stopped and dodged to the side. However, a sharp arrow that was comparable to a C-grade relic was shot at the assassin, piercing through his head. Somewhere in the Shuoyu residence, a transparent ripple appeared and disappeared. Needless to say, the arrow that was comparable to a C-grade relic was shot out from the transparent ripple. Then, the assassin collapsed on the ground. The magic in his body began to burn, and eventually, he turned into an automaton. A card fell on the ground, but strangely, the card turned into ashes along with the user and disappeared with the wind. It seems like this is a one-time use card. Has Ainsworth learned his lesson? Wuming flew up and said to young Gil. So, Gil, can you help me call everyone? Of course, teacher. Young Gil disappeared from the roof with a flash of golden particles. Wuming came to the courtyard of the Shuoyu residence and inserted one hand into the ground. Space fold, expand. After a while, Elia was woken up by Mei Yu and put on her clothes. Mei Yu, are the enemies here? Ilya rubbed her sleepy eyes and looked at Mei Yu. Yes, Sister Rin asked me to wake you up. They have all gathered. Brother Wuming found the enemy's tracks. We have to prepare in advance. After that, Mei Yu pulled Ilya toward the courtyard of the Shuoyu residence. Whoa, why do they have to come at this time? Damn it, it's like sleeping. Mei Yu turned her head and comforted Ilya. Don't worry, Ilya. Brother Wuming is here. When the preparations are complete, you can go and sleep for a while. I will call you again. No. No need, Mei Yu. After all, the enemy has already attacked. It's better to be serious. Ilya waved her hand awkwardly. Speaking of which, why haven't we reached the end after walking for so long? Mei Yu had been pulling Ilya for a while. Ilya discovered that they still hadn't reached the courtyard. Could it be ghosts? Ilya's expression instantly became flustered. Unfortunately, Ilya's whimsical theory was denied. No, it's Wuming who expanded the folded space of the Shuoyu residence. That's why we haven't reached the end after walking for so long. Mei Yu shook her head. That's right, Ilya-chan. You are obviously a magical girl. How can you be afraid of ghosts? With me here, Ilya-chan can catch ghosts. Ruby's sleepy voice came out from Ilya's hair. You lazy bug. It's time to get up. Stop talking. Ilya ridiculed Ruby. Sister, come out quickly. The enemy has arrived. Sapphire, who had already come out from Mayo's hair, floated behind Ilya's head and said to Ruby, hidden in her hair. Yes, I'll come out now. Ruby said somewhat unwillingly. We're here. Mei Yu stopped and pushed open the door to the courtyard. This is... Chapter 290. Ilya's eyes widened when she saw the scene in the courtyard. She was speechless. The courtyard that was originally several dozen square meters had exceeded Ilya's calculations. It was so big that she couldn't even see the end. Ilya estimated that it was several thousand square meters. In this several thousand square meters courtyard, there were huge steel golems that were more than 3 meters tall. They were like an orderly army that was arranged in an orderly manner. These steel puppets were like high-tech robots. Just one of them was enough for Ilya to sense danger, not to mention the countless puppets in the courtyard. These are... Ilya didn't dare to speak. Mei Yu, Ilya, why are you two so late? We're just waiting for you two. Little Black waved at Ilya and Mei Yu, who had just arrived. Ilya and Mei Yu hurriedly ran over. Sorry, Little Black. The space inside the house after unfolding the spatial folding is a little large. I spent some time bringing Ilya. Mei Yu apologized to Little Black. You don't have to apologize for such a small matter. Speaking of which, could it be that Ilya was lazing in bed and couldn't get up? That's why you're late, right? Little Black looked at Ilya with a gaze that seemed to see through everything. How is that possible? Little Black, why would I laze in bed? Ah ha ha ha. Ilya touched the back of her head and laughed. In fact, Little Black wasn't wrong. Is that so? Don't forget that we used to be one body. I basically know all your habits, Ilya, eh? Wait a minute, that. I didn't. Little Black's words caused Ilya to stutter and become speechless. Stop fooling around, you two. Let's get down to business. Rin Enbin said to the two who were teasing and being teased. He instantly glared at Little Black. Blackie, on the other hand, turned his head away while whistling. Everyone looked at Wu Ming attentively. Beside Wu Ming, who had his eyes closed, a black teleportation door opened. Another steel golem walked out. It walked to a fixed position and stood there steadily. Then, Wu Ming opened his eyes. That should be enough. Then, Wu Ming began to chant. Under the night sky, under the brilliance of the light, form an ancient covenant with me. Here, thy body belongs to us, and we govern thy body. Gods of darkness and light, form a covenant here. As the words were uttered, the ground of the lunar manor began to change. First, it was mixed with a trace of golden light. Then, like a swamp, the ground slowly swallowed the countless iron golems standing on the ground. Only when all the steel golems had disappeared did the earth return to its original state. Were all these steel men swallowed by the earth? Ilya was a little surprised. Don't worry. Wu Ming walked up to Ilya and rubbed her little head. The color of the earth just now was the effect of my noble phantasm. Now, they are staying in my noble phantasm, waiting for my summons. That's right, what Wu Ming just used was one of the uses of his kin avatar. Originally, that avatar was originally Mecker's ability to summon locusts to devour everything. Combined with Wu Ming's own evolution, that ability became the ability to summon his avatar. But even if it evolved, the original ability would not disappear, and it still had the effect of summoning creatures. However, because Wu Ming and the locust's attributes were not compatible, there was nothing in Wu Ming's kin space. That required Wu Ming to find creatures who volunteered to be Wu Ming's summoned creatures to fill in the space. Compared to living creatures with flesh and blood, Wu Ming was more inclined to these golems without self-consciousness. That was what happened just now. Wu Ming summoned the strongest steel golem in Nazalik's kin space. After entering Wu Ming's noble phantasm, those steel golems would automatically become Wu Ming's summoned creatures because they were unconscious. As long as Wu Ming activated his dependent incarnation and didn't transmit his aura to that incarnation, then all those magic puppets would have the power to restrain the black mud. Of course, the other side would also have the power to restrain this side. In short, both sides restrained each other. Let's go, everyone, the other side has begun to move. In order to avoid affecting the city, I decided to attack the other side's base directly. Everyone nodded. Immediately afterward, Wu Ming, Shiro Amiya, Sakura Madu, Gil, and Bazette left Shuo Suki House together. Rin and Osaka, Livia, Ilya, Miyu, and Xiao Hei stayed in Shuo Suki House. Let's go, Ms. Rin, Ms. Livia, let's quickly activate the Master's Temple and go to the other side's base. Collis suddenly appeared behind Rin and Osaka and Livia without any warning and said, "Ah!" Rin and Osaka and Livia were both startled. After seeing Collis, who was of the same race as Ruby and Sapphire, they both calmed down. I know, let's go. It's improper to scare a lady. Rin and Osaka and Livia complained and went to the control room. Then let's go and prepare. Xiao Hei began to move. Wait a minute, Blackie. Didn't Brother Wu Ming tell us to stay here obediently? Ilya looked at Blackie, wanting to say something but hesitating. Xiao Hei turned his head away with a look of disdain. Should I say that you're a fool or an idiot? Big Brother did tell us to stay here as obediently as possible, but there are always accidents. We have to be prepared. If Big Brother and the others can't win for a while, we can go and help. Xiao He turned his head and looked at Mei Yu. Mei Yu would agree with me. Ah. Mei Yu, who didn't expect Xiao He to ask her, was startled at first, but then she reacted. That. It's not impossible to prepare a little. Back then, when Wu Ming asked the three of them to stay in Shuosuki house, Mei Yu was still a little angry. She became a magical girl. Other than to collect class cards, she also wanted to increase her power and help Wu Ming. Although Mei Yu was a good girl, good girls also had a stubborn side. Ilya, let's go and prepare, just in case. Looking at Mei Yu's determined eyes, Ilya didn't know what to do and nodded. Then, all right. All right, let's go, let's go. If we help Big Brother later, we can ask for a reward. Xiao He pushed the two of them and started to tempt them. Xiao He, don't push me away, reward. Ignoring Ilya's cry of surprise, Xiao He saw that Mei Yu had fallen into his trap and immediately spoke. That's right, that's right. Don't you want Big Brother to kiss you? I missed that night very much. As he spoke, Xiao He pretended to be seductive and tempted the two of them. That night. Mei Yu was stunned. Not pure. Xiao He, you're a girl. You have to be reserved, understand? Yes. Let's go. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.